Everybody get a good night's sleep? Full 8 hours? Probably not, but so now we'll get the meeting started. Roll call. Councillor Lorraine will be late this morning. He sent me a message. So adoption of the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda as presented for the second budget working session for the 2019 budget. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Tonoski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. I see none. Item 4, budget presentation. We will continue where we left off at 9:15 last night. Councilor Tonoski has to get his reading glasses. We're all going in that direction.
Not me.
Lucky you then. Keep on eating carrots.
That's right.
We're in the capital project section, CISA, and now we're looking at the industrial park capital project. Monsieur Godin.
Merci, Monsieur Maire. Yes, that's correct. So we have one department left for the capital projects, the industrial park, and we are at slide 160.
160?
Still in section 8 of the binder.
Oui, ben c'est fait là.
160.
No, I got this line.
Yeah, it was in the long pages from
Okay.
yesterday. We're still in the capital projects.
C'est quoi le numéro? C'est quoi le numéro? C'est comme parce que tu as 250 qui est bordé.
Non, c'est 821. Donc c'est le dernier département.
Ah, ok. Merci.
Industrial Park. Madame Tremblay.
Bon matin.
Bon matin.
Donc, cette présentation-là, c'est techniquement la même présentation qu'on a eue au Conseil la semaine passée. Donc, le premier thème, on en a parlé hier, c'est la fiche pour le parc industriel. Donc, l'année passée, on avait mis de l'argent au niveau du capital. On n'a pas utilisé cet argent-là, donc on l'a transféré cette année pour continuer le projet. Donc, l'année passée, on a fait toute la planification de l'enseigne. Les plans sont prêts. On est prêt à sortir en tender pour la construction. Donc, le montant qui a été mis, c'est simplement pour ajouter au montant de l'année passée. Initialement, l'enseigne, on n'avait pas besoin d'une approbation par un ingénieur parce qu'on la faisait plus basse que les standards. Puis basé sur les plans qu'on a reçus, puis les enseignes existantes du Ultramar puis du McEwen. Il était plus grande que celle qu'on proposait, fait qu'on est allé plus haut. Donc, les frais additionnels, c'est pour les approbations des ingénieurs pour les permis de construction.
Merci. Conseiller Brisson.
C'est juste savoir, est-ce qu'il y a des commerces qui ont été approchés comme c'est là pour savoir quels qui seraient intéressés à mettre leur nom? Puis...
Oui, donc l'année passée, on avait fait une rencontre avec les propriétaires du parc industriel. Puis à cette rencontre-là, on a parlé de l'intérêt d'avoir un comité de développement économique pour le parc industriel. Puis à cette rencontre-là aussi, on avait des gens qui avaient démontré leur intérêt. On n'avait pas parlé des prix ou rien de ça parce qu'il faut que ça revienne au conseil pour savoir comment on va louer l'espace. Puis on ne savait pas exactement dans ce temps-là quelle était la grandeur des espaces qui seraient alloués pour leur public, afficher leur entreprise. Fait que là, à ce moment-là, nous, on prévoit une rencontre à la fin février encore avec les gens du parc industriel pour justement parler de donner l'information concrète, exactement l'espace, le nombre de temps qu'ils vont pouvoir avoir des contrats pour. C'est une période de 3 ans, de 5 ans. Il faut que ça soit présenté au conseil aussi avant. Mais oui, à cette rencontre-là, on avait 7 entreprises qui avaient démontré de l'intérêt pour justement, puis on a 10 espaces d'affichage.
C'était une question à 10. Mais c'est comment, ça va en parler plus tard, mais la politique, s'il y en a 12 qui décident, c'est comment que ça va être?
Ils vont,
Ils m'ont
ça,
pris.
c'est ça, on va être dans le trou. Mais non, en ce moment, on avait mis 10 parce que justement, on avait de l'intérêt pour 7, qui c'était pas officiel. Puis pour être réaliste, on a beaucoup de problèmes, de difficultés, c'est pas un problème, à trouver des gens, par exemple, pour le sponsorship, pour le wrapping des autobus, puis le sponsorship pour la publicité dans les abribus. C'est pas facile d'avoir des gens qui s'embarquent dans des contrats de 3 à 5 ans justement pour la publicité. Donc, on a essayé d'être le plus réaliste possible en offrant des espaces qui sont quand même assez gros pour leur donner leur affichage. Donc, on devrait être correct là, pour booker ces 10 espaces-là. Puis dans le budget opérationnel, on a prévu des revenus pour cette publicité-là pour les prochains 6 mois. Donc,
Ça va être
c'est ça, par le temps qu'elle soit construite et installée.
clarification.
Conseil.
Fait que ce que vous dites, c'est qu'il y aura 6 mois de revenus pour. OK.
Mhm.
Cette année.
Cette année, oui.
D'autres questions là-dessus? Non? Madame Tremblay?
Le prochain projet, c'est on a mis l'argent au budget pour acheter la propriété de Trade and Industry qu'on a agrandi dans notre parc industriel. Puis les autres montants, c'est des montants qui sont associés au design de rue dans cette nouvelle phase-là. So the purchase of land that we've agreed upon a couple weeks ago is we had money in the budget for the design of the roads, the road construction just for a part, and installation of fiber optic, bell, and hydro. So that's all the costs that we'll bring back to council to justify the increase of price per acre. So just a fun fact that I added on that slide is that basically based on the revenues that we're getting in taxes for the properties that we're selling right now, we're estimating for the 5 next year, $135,000 of revenues in taxes just on our share, and about 200 job creation.
Very
That's
nice.
taking in consideration that we're still selling properties on private services. So if we were to bring water and sewer, then we would see those numbers increase.
Increase. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. D'autres questions, commentaires? Non? Monsieur Godin, on peut continuer? Je pense que c'est As-tu le dernier des capitaux projets?
Oui, merci M. le maire. Donc oui, ça c'était le dernier des projets capitaux. So the next few slides is just going to give you a brief overview of all our different financing options. We've already went through the infrastructure fund, but there's a few other options that we have, and I'll just describe a bit of history regarding them. So basically, when preparing the capital budget and looking for financing, we tend to look at four resources, sometimes more, but these are the most popular ones. There's a taxation, like I mentioned before, for the infrastructure fund. We sometimes have possibilities of grants. We can take some money from our reserves, which we'll go through later on. And there's always the possibility of loans as well. Donc, je vais passer à toi.
Monsieur Godin?
Oui.
Conseiller Larin?
When you talk about reserves, are you lumping development charges in the reserves, or is that an omission here?
That's a good point, yes. So we are including DCs in reserves, but I think it should be its own category.
I think it should be its own
Kind of has a
category as
different
well.
dynamic, you're right.
Thank
So
you.
we're going to find that for the next presentation. We will speak on DCs though when we get to the reserve section. So I'm going to skip over the infrastructure fund part because we looked at it yesterday. So for grants, just a quick slide just to show the trends for grants, how many grants we've received in the last years. This graph shows from 2010 to our estimates from 2019. As we can see, we have significant numbers coming from the provincial government, especially for our infrastructure. The OCIF has been going up on a yearly basis. We're expecting to receive, and we have in the budget, a revenue of $632,000 for that one, which is split up between projects in the roads department and I think a small portion in storm sewer as well.
Conseiller Brisson?
Et là, je vois aussi en 2019 qu'on va pouvoir remettre la grant des Ponts-des-Unis aussi, le vert.
Oui.
Qui n'est pas inclus là, mais
Oui.
que là, c'est...
Oui, comme point d'appui, on va pouvoir amender la présentation pour refléter ça aussi.
puis comme-
Conseiller Brisson, Laurent?
Because we talked about this yesterday and there seems to be at times confusion with it, can we make sure the slide represents federal gas tax and not just gas tax? Because we do get a provincial gas tax, but that's dedicated to transit,
Yeah.
so I think it needs to be identified there.
Conseiller Brisson?
C'était juste aussi le commentaire quand il y en a qui disaient que justement qu'on n'allait pas pour des grants, qu'à chaque année qu'on voit que ça a augmenté, malgré les coupures des gouvernements, tout ça. Fait que je pensais que c'était plus le contraire, que ça faisait qu'on aurait eu un graphe qui descendait, mais que là ça remonte.
Ça inclut juste ceux que c'est standard à chaque année. C'est pas nécessairement
Ok.
les applications qu'on applique pour des projets spécifiques, c'est ça.
Oui, c'est ça. Donc, c'est vraiment toutes les octrois qui sont alloués automatiquement. C'est pas des applications. Donc, ça se peut qu'on va recevoir plus d'octrois avec d'autres applications, des choses comme ça. Puis aussi, on a vu un tableau semblable dans la section de l'opérationnel. C'est là qu'on voit que ça va plus en descendant. Donc, si on les met ensemble, les deux tableaux, ça se situe un petit peu. Les autres requests qu'on a indiqués ici, c'est le gas tax. Aussi, c'est un montant signifiant de 500 000 dans le département des routes, puis il y a un montant aussi dans les récréations pour ce octroi-là. Puis, comme le conseiller Brisson a mentionné, le 356 000 des Ponts-des-Unis devrait revenir encore une fois en 2019, selon ce que vous avez dit. Donc, pour nos réserves, vous avez tout le détail de nos réserves dans votre cartable à la section 9.
Section 9. OK.
Oui. Ce qu'on vous présente ici, c'est vraiment juste un sommaire de toutes nos réserves depuis 2016 à 2019. On voit que on a une balance au total de nos réserves et de nos frais de développement d'environ 10 à 11 millions d'année en année. Ça monte, ça baisse, mais ce qu'on ne voit pas ici, c'est vraiment tout le détail de chacune des réserves spécifiques. On a quand même une bonne liste de réserves pour différentes utilités. On a des réserves we have some asset management reserves like we went through yesterday. And we have specific reserves. When we say specific reserve, it's because it's a reserve that's in place for a specific function. For example, the energy fund that we discussed yesterday would be categorized into that. And we have the temporary reserves. Those are kind of maybe an amount that's put into the reserve just for a specific project. So it's once that need is satisfied, then that reserve is going to be discontinued. And we also have deferred revenue at the top, and that's where we see our development charges. Basically, it's the monies that we collect from developers when they apply for building permits go into that reserve, and then we use that reserve to fund some growth-related projects.
Conseiller Brisson?
Puis là, je vois que comme en 2016, il était proche 4 millions, puis là, il tombe dans le négatif.
Ouais.
C'est-tu pour le don? Pour les DC, là?
Ouais, non, c'est pour le transfert des. Je sais pas si tu te souviens, le conseil de mais en 2017, quand on a fait, suivant la revue des frais de développement en 2016, nos consultants nous avaient listé certains projets où on n'avait pas été utilisé des frais de développement, mais ça a été allouable. Donc, on avait fait un ajustement à ce moment-là. Il y avait eu un transfert de la réserve des DC au département d'eau, puis aussi pour le financement du dôme à ce moment-là, en 2017. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'il y a eu un gros transfert, c'est pour ça le gros retrait des frais de développement.
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Leduc, on a-tu une politique ou un cap, comme je vois, il y a certaines lignes ici que les réserves continuent à monter, puis je me demande, par exemple, pour le daycare before and after, on a une réserve au-dessus de, on estime 520 000 cette année. Y a-tu comme un plafond qu'on dit, OK, ben, on frappe tel montant, puis le reste goes into general reserves? Ou?
Oui, merci, M. le maire. Donc, c'est une très bonne question. En ce moment, pour cette réserve-là spécifiquement, on n'a pas de cap. À la fin 2017, on a mis en place une politique sur la gestion des réserves. So in 2017, we put in place a reserve management policy. Certain reserves, and that's where we really clarified what certain reserves were used for. And for certain specific reserves, we did put a cap. That particular reserve wasn't included in those reserves. So at this moment, to answer your question specifically on the daycare reserves, there is no cap.
Okay. Sounds good with that?
I have a question specific to that. We have over $500,000 in a reserve from the daycare. Can somebody explain to me then why we're increasing fees for the daycare and not decreasing fees?
Madame Guitar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The first answer that I would have for this is like I explained yesterday, the preschool daycare is costing money to the township, so we need to be very careful with this. I wanna continue that service, but every year we'll be in the negative with that.
You have $500,000 in reserve, or you have $500,000 in reserve.
Yeah, but let's be clear, the reason we have $5 million is because or 500,000 is we're providing an effective service. We're the cheapest daycare services in all of the counties. We give parents the option instead of, if you only use 2 days, you're only paying for 2 days where everybody
No,
else.
I understand that, but
Okay.
we're not here to build up another reserve, right? I mean, if we keep going the way we're going, that reserve's gonna keep getting higher and higher and higher. When are we actually gonna spend the reserve?
That's up to discussions with administration. Madame Guitar?
Yes, so the next item, like I explained yesterday, in my business plan, we want the continuity of the daycare. So, we've been looking for another location for another daycare, so when we get there, we'll need money. So this is why we're building up a reserve. When we get there, we will have the funds to go forward. So this is why. And the daycare fund, we cannot use that for anything else than the daycare. So I cannot use this to, let's say, repair something in the arena.
No, I never suggested that.
No, I know.
I'm talking strictly with the daycare right
Yeah.
now.
So this is where we're going with this. So in building up a reserve, when I find something that will be
So for example, if,
acceptable for a daycare, we will have some funds on the side. So this way township will not have to take a loan, will not have to increase the rates in order to open up another daycare. So I think that's a wise way to do it. Like I explained also, the daycare in Embrun has had the same rates for the last 5 years. We never increased. Like Mr. Mayor explained also, we allow them part-time. We don't see that anywhere else in Prescott Russell, anywhere at all, because it's a lot of management. And I can say that the parents do appreciate that, because instead of paying for a full week of daycare, they only pay 2 days if they went 2 days. We go by calendar. So,
so
I think it is important to be looking in the future. We do need daycares. That's a must. We have 180 names on the waiting list.
Okay, so is it township, has council given a direction for staff to get into the daycare business outside of schools? My understanding was we were only gonna do it at the school.
Monsieur Leduc?
Well, if you look at our 215-218 strategic plan, it's written quite clearly that we are to look at providing daycare across the township, so to increase our daycare presence in the township. So it's been there since 2015, and we've been aiming at this to improve our daycare services.
I think as well as in the past, we've had delegations and people speaking here at the council chambers. In Russell, for example, how the lack of daycare available obviously, we don't have the service available in the village of Russell, but that could be something we could be looking at, right? If we're looking at a location to put up a building, renovate a building, or whatever the case is.
That's right. So right now, the young families that have younger children before 4 years old, most of them take their children in Ottawa, in daycares in Ottawa, because we have nothing here. We only have 2 daycares that can take from 6 months to 4 years old.
Excluding home daycares.
Excluding home daycares, but home daycares, they have a cap of 5.
No,
Which is,
I understand.
You know, yeah, so there's not many of them. So if you see, like Mrs. Tremblay said, with her growth, all the houses that are coming in, most of those houses are sold to young families that have young children. They need a place to go. Parents need to go to work.
In regards to my question, I just wanna make sure that we have plans or a vision for these reserves. As Councillor Lorraine said, we just don't wanna keep building up reserves, but from what you're telling me, we have a plan of the direction we're going in. Mr. Goodman?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. And just to elaborate through it, because these reserves are mentioned in the reserve management policy. There is no cap. That was just the answer to that question. But and the way it's managed is basically it's kind of like the other user fee departments, where it's a kind of a surplus or deficit reserve, where if we have a surplus, we put it directly in there. If we have a deficit, we go get it from there. And just I know it's accumulated in the last few years, and now it's over 500,000. We are projecting in 2019 that the funding is going to go down a bit, and that's due in large part to the new daycare that was opened in I think it was the end of 2017 or early 2017.
2017.
Which isn't making money like the past 5 hours.
Right.
So
And we see, from what you're telling me, we see that that's a demand, that the demand is there, but I always come back to, you know, are we providing a service? Are we getting a return on our investment? Is that something we want to continue doing, is offering the service that we know that it's going to continue costing money? Monsieur Leduc?
So, Madame Conseil, I suggest that we will bring back a report to council before end of May or June regarding all the private county supplied and township supplied spaces of daycare. We will know exactly where we are. I think also we will question that answer, that issue. Could that surplus hitting at one point to a maximum level, could it be used for something else? We can certainly ask the question, is that legal or not? And once we do have that report in front of council, then it'd be a fairer debate to having all the information in front of you to make it clear, is it worthwhile or not?
Just out of curiosity, I know like we talked this week, we did a market research study that gave us exactly the numbers. You mentioned a waiting list at the school. Do we have a study that determines how many spaces are needed in the municipality as a whole?
No, we don't have a study for that. It's people calling randomly, and they leave their name because some people will call, the child is not even born.
So
to put their name on the list. This is how it is.
I'm just curious if there's a way, if there's a study that could be done to determine with the growth projection what the capacity need would be.
I could confirm with counties, the social services, they might have.
Okay.
Because right now, like the demand for the before and after school, that is met. Because every school, like I explained, has a daycare now. So people really have the choice for that age group, but it's the younger ones that do not have any places to go.
Merci, Merci.
Puis dans le privé, il n'y en a pas, c'est parce que, comme il avait mentionné, que c'est un âge qui est déficitaire un peu, même si je vois qu'on fait de l'argent, ou si on fait de l'argent avec le preschool, pas preschool, avec le ceux de...
Before and after school, fait de l'argent, mais le preschool, on pas de l'argent.
So when you have private daycares, either they're with a ministry or they're not. So that's their choice, and township has no control on that. If they are with the ministry, there's a cap. You cannot have 2 years old in the house. If you're private and you're not with the ministry, then that is your choice. Some do, some don't. That is their choice. But with the ministry, it's very strict. So they do have rules that those home daycares have to abide.
Qui serait semblable à ce qu'on a, nous autres.
Yes, it's not as strict, but it's something similar.
Conseiller Ternasky?
Juste confirmer avec M. Leduc, je pense que ça va être une bonne idée au mois de mai de faire un full picture à la place de.
Oui, effectivement.
Merci.
D'autres questions, commentaires? Continue, M. Godin.
Merci, M. le maire. Je pense que c'est bon temps. Ici, on présente le sommaire de nos sols de réserve. Vous avez eu le vocabulaire de la liste complète des réserves. Si vous n'avez pas de questions, je vais continuer avec vous présenter un petit peu un résumé de l'activité prévue en 2019 pour les réserves. Mais si vous avez des questions par rapport à une réserve spécifique ou une autre, ça serait peut-être à mon temps.
Everybody's okay?
Parfait. Donc, pour commencer, to start, I'm going to talk about just our DC reserve. This is just a bit of history of our DC revenue. So basically, the monies we've collected from developers in the last few years since 2016. You'll see in 2017 the number goes down, and the reason of this is we adjusted the rates when we did our study in 2016. So we reduced our rates to a total of 16,000 in 2017. So basically, we obtained 1.9 million in 2017. Right now, our year-end estimates for 2018 is 2.5 million. Our estimate from 2019 is the same that we estimated last year, which is 2.1. So we see that in 2018 we surpassed that revenue by about $400,000, $450,000. In 2019, we still wanted to keep the same estimates that were initially made when we did the study. It could be more, it could be less. So we know it can vary a lot depending on construction. So we kept it like this for now. The difference is going to be reflected in the reserve balance. Pour parler juste des projets, so notable projects that were identified in the capital project or in the capital budget that are being funded from DC reserves. We have paving on Saint-Augustin, which a portion of it is funded through that reserve. We have sidewalks between Broadway and Old Town as well. And the environmental study for the demolish services and improvement to the pumping station number 7 are also funded through DC reserves. And as well in the Parks and Recreation Department, we have the Richelieu Park entrance, which is 70% DC allowable.
Conseiller Brisson?
Juste me expliquer encore pourquoi que il y en a des chemins qui peuvent être avec les DC, puis avec un pourcentage, d'autres qui ne sont pas.
Donc tout ce qui est inclus dans l'étude des frais de développement, c'est par rapport au pourquoi qu'on fait le projet, puis c'est qui en bénéficie. Donc si on apporte un projet, si on fait un projet, puis c'est vraiment initié par la croissance, donc à ce moment-là, ça peut être financé en part par les DC. Pour les chemins ici spécifiquement, je ne sais pas c'est quoi les circonstances spécifiques, peut-être que Jonathan pourrait élaborer, mais je veux dire, si c'est un chemin qui s'en va vers une subdivision, ou bien si c'est un chemin qu'on élargit, ou un upgrade qui est fait au chemin pour pouvoir permettre plus de trafic, pour la croissance ou des situations comme ça, à ce moment-là, ben, il y aurait une portion qui pourrait être financée par les DC. Ça ne serait jamais 100% parce que, ultimement, quand on fait une construction de chemin, on remplace celui qui est existant aussi. Donc, les résidents qui habitent sur le chemin, par exemple, ils en bénéficient aussi. Donc, il y a un calcul qui est fait à chaque fois qu'on refait l'étude des frais de développement pour chacun des projets, pour voir vraiment c'est qui profite de ce projet-là, puis pour qu'on puisse le financer de la façon appropriée.
Mais il faut qu'il soit identifié dans la liste de DC avant.
Monsieur Bourgon, tu peux-tu tourner un petit peu plus sur le...
Ben, dans le fond, je vais aller un peu dans les mêmes lignes que ce que M. Godin vient d'expliquer. Quand on a fait l'étude des DC, il y a plusieurs segments de chemin qui ont été identifiés, qu'il y aurait une amélioration possible. Encore une fois, l'étude tient en compte qu'il y a un bon pourcentage qui est déjà utilisé par les résidents existants. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'il y a juste un certain pourcentage là, qui peut être dédié à certains segments.
Dans ce cas-ci, la rue Saint-Augustin, évidemment, il y a plus de développement dans la région, plus de personnes qui vont passer par ce chemin-là. Alors, on dit qu'il y a 33% d'augmentation.
Puis ça va aussi par le type de truc, comme on va augmenter comme la largeur du chemin, on améliore la condition routière. Donc c'est cette différence-là qu'on peut aller chercher des DC. Puis c'est une pratique qu'on a vue dans les dernières années depuis qu'on a révisé l'étude de DC, qu'il y a des portions comme ça là, qui est allouées au pavage. Fait que si vous regardez, mettons, au budget 2017-2018, il y a la même pratique là, qui est appliquée à certains segments.
On augmente le niveau de service.
C'est un bon résumé, oui, exactement.
Parfait. Vous pouvez continuer, M. Godin?
Merci, M. le maire. Donc, la prochaine réserve qu'on va regarder un petit peu. Habituellement, ici, dans la présentation, vous allez présenter les mêmes tableaux et les mêmes graphiques pour nos réserves d'asset management. Puis, mais étant donné qu'on a déjà passé à travers cette discussion-là quand on a discuté du fonds d'infrastructure, on a enlevé ces diapos, mais on va quand même parler de la réserve d'asset management pour eau et goût. Le conseil est juste pour donner un petit peu de contexte par rapport à Water and Sewer pour l'asset management. Ce département-là est un petit peu plus avancé dans le sens que on a présenté un gap pour les autres départements hier, un infrastructure gap. So for asset management in water and sewer, a firm was hired a few years ago to really look at our asset management and to make a long-term financial plan. We've spoken a bit about that financial model a few times in meetings. Essentially, water and sewer have a constant investment into asset management every year, and it's been established to be sustainable for its assets. We're talking about $450 for water and $160 for sewer, so basically a slight increase every year. Si on regarde le tableau en 2017, on voit une grosse augmentation à la réserve ou au transfert à la réserve. Puis ça, il y a un lien direct à ce qu'on a parlé plus tôt pendant la rencontre par rapport au DC. En fait, le montant a été transféré des frais de développement à la réserve d'eau. Donc, c'est ça qui explique le spike, si tu veux, en 2017. Mais autre que ça, on a un input constant dans cette réserve-là.
Conseiller Buisson?
Je vois que les fonds qui viennent de l'eau est beaucoup plus grand que les égouts. C'est quoi la raison de ça?
Bonne question, conseiller Buisson. Donc, je ne veux pas aller du côté technique spécifique, je ne suis pas certain. Ce que ça veut dire, dans le fond, c'est que le besoin annuel en investissement en infrastructure est plus élevé pour l'eau que pour les égouts. Le pourquoi, je ne sais pas si tu as d'autres choses.
Monsieur Bourgon?
Si je pourrais ajouter, c'est que ça revient à notre étude d'asset management. Donc, le besoin de remplacement dans le futur, l'infrastructure est plus coûteuse, donc un plus grand besoin à mettre de l'argent en réserve pour ces remplacements-là ou amélioration dans le futur. Comme mais je peux utiliser un exemple, c'est de l'agrandissement du réservoir ou des choses comme ça, des réparations de cette nature-là.
Okay, merci.
Donc, le prochain diapo, c'est juste un petit peu une liste de certains projets. Premièrement, on vous présente, on a transféré en réserve un montant total de 616 000. Ça, c'est si on regarde les deux départements ensemble. Puis, on a un total de 1,3 million de projets qui sont projetés pour 2019. Donc, comme je vous expliquais hier, un petit peu le principe de faire des transferts en réserve annuels comme ça, c'est que l'impact au taux, comme les taux d'eau et les taux d'égout, est stable. Il n'y a pas des grosses augmentations, des grosses diminutions à mesure que le besoin de projets annuels fluctue. On voit ici quand même que en 2019, il y a un besoin de plus de projets parce qu'on va chercher plus d'argent que ce qu'on transfère. Mais ça, dans d'autres années, ça va être le contraire, donc ça s'équilibre à ce niveau-là. Les notable projects for 2019, we have the water meters that are being replaced. So we're looking at about $660,000 there. Other projects I know are the water tower in Russell, Embrun Lagoon sludge removal. This is projects that we went through yesterday. The SCADA upgrade, ammonia removal, and vehicle replacement. So these are all being funded through this asset management.
Conseiller Buisson?
Je vois justement la tour d'eau à Russell, mais il me semblait que dans les dépenses aussi, il y avait la tour d'eau de Russell et Marionville. Pourquoi que l'autre rentre pas dedans?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, oui, vous avez raison, la tour d'eau Marionville est inclue dans ce projet-là, mais on parle d'une valeur de 35 000
Ben, juste pour démontrer
Puis là, M. Golin fait vraiment mention là, des gros montants, des projets significatifs.
Donc c'est ça. Étant donné qu'on a déjà passé à travers les projets, on ne voulait pas encore juste revisiter tous les projets. Donc ceci, ça conclut la section des réserves. S'il n'y a pas de questions, on peut poursuivre
Je peux continuer?
à la dette.
On a-tu une section de la dette? Non.
Pas dans, excuse-moi, dans la comptable, il n'y a pas de section de la dette. Donc ça va être vraiment, on a les diapos, puis il y a aussi la césure D que vous allez pouvoir suivre à ce moment-là. Donc pour commencer, je vais juste un petit peu expliquer les limitations, puis les lois ou les règles qu'on doit suivre par rapport à la dette, surtout pour comme M. le conseiller Tomaski. Je pense qu'on peut encore passer à travers cette question-là. Donc, juste pour garder ça simple, en fond, la province impose une limite de 25 de nos revenus nets. Donc, quand on parle de limite pour la dette, nos paiements annuels, donc tous nos remboursements de dette qu'on fait dans une année, le montant total de remboursement annuel ne peut pas dépasser 25 de nos revenus nets, juste de façon simple. Donc, en avril 2018, le Conseil a adopté aussi une politique de gestion de dette dans laquelle on s'est imposé nous-mêmes d'autres limites un petit peu plus strictes que les limites de la province, juste pour avoir un petit peu se responsabiliser puis avoir un petit peu une ligne directive du Conseil par rapport à l'utilisation de la dette. Donc, le graphique qu'on présente ici, c'est vraiment une image de monétairement ce que ça représente comme paiement annuel, la limite de la province et la limite qu'on s'est imposée par la politique.
Councilor Tomaski?
Monsieur Godin, vous pourriez juste confirmer le pourcentage pour la limite de Russell Township?
Oui, absolument. Donc, comme je disais, pour la province, la limite c'est 25 mais pour nous, ce qu'on s'est imposé, pour nos paiements annuels overall, comme peu importe c'est quel département, on s'est imposé un 15 de nos revenus nets.
Quel montant comme ça?
Et le montant en 2019, c'est de 5,7 millions. Ça, c'est ce qu'on voit ici. Si on regarde la ligne bleue, le 15 c'est 3,4 millions. La limite de la province, c'est de 5,7.
Le 25 c'est en bleu, la ligne rouge, c'est 15
Exactement, c'est ça.
Fait que ça, c'est paiement, capital et intérêt pour tout emprunt.
Oui, c'est ça. Et c'est des paiements vraiment annuels. Donc,
Puis là, on fait le graphique, à quoi qu'on est comme c'est là.
oui, on va tout voir ça dans les prochains diapos. Ce graphique-ci, c'est vraiment simplifié juste pour que vous puissiez comprendre le concept de nos limites dans le fond. Puis juste pour élaborer aussi sur nos limites de notre politique, comme je disais, c'est 15 sur 15 des revenus nets pour la dette overall. On s'est aussi imposé des dettes spécifiques si l'emprunt est pour un projet d'eau et d'égout ou si c'est pour un emprunt d'un projet de taxation générale. Donc, on va rentrer dans les détails bientôt.
Donc, justement, avec la venue du Dôme, puis de plus de garderies, ça n'a fait que, justement, c'est pas une ligne droite, que ça devrait avoir remonté des dernières années.
Oui, il y a ces deux critères-là qui créent des nouveaux revenus. Il y a aussi l'évaluation foncière qui augmente à chaque année. Mais pas à chaque année, mais je veux dire, à chaque 4 ans, Impact réévalue les maisons, toutes les propriétés. Donc, l'évaluation augmente de façon générale à ce moment-là aussi. Puis il y a aussi la croissance qui augmente nos revenus. Donc, la courbe, ça représente vraiment l'estimation des augmentations de nos revenus nets d'année en année. Puis c'est basé sur l'historique, puis aussi sur justement.
Comme ça qu'une ligne droite, c'est comme plus ou moins la croissance qu'il y a générale. Puis là, ben, quand il y a eu des choses spéciales comme l'autre, ça fait un peu.
Councilor Tomaski?
Juste confirmer, M. Godin, quand on parle de revenu net, on ne parle pas d'octroi à quoi que ce soit. C'est juste taxe.
Je pense que les octrois rentrent en considération, étant donné que c'est un revenu qui est pas, on peut pas vraiment se fier à ça parce que ça peut disparaître dans notre gouvernement. Puis c'est vraiment, c'est un montant qui est calculé par la province aussi, qui nous a, à chaque année, quand on finit nos états financiers, il y a un autre document qu'on doit préparer, ça s'appelle le FIR, le Financial Information Return, où on donne de l'information spécifique par rapport à toutes nos activités, tous nos revenus, puis chaque département. Puis c'est à ce moment-là que la province prend tout ça en inventaire, puis envoie un document à chacune des municipalités pour détailler c'est quoi qu'on calcule, puis la limite de d'autres revenus qui ne sont pas inclus dedans, c'est aussi les frais de développement, les montants qu'on collecte à travers les frais de développement, c'est pas inclus. Donc, ça peut ouvrir la cédule D. Mon ex D, vous l'avez en papier dans votre... ça serait au slide 181. Après ça, vous avez un document, c'est l'annexe D. So I'm going to go through a few pages here just to show what our annual repayment limit is, how many annual repayments we currently have, projects that we're looking at upcoming in the future potentially, and what the impact those projects could have on this limit. So I'm just going to go through a bit of detail on the first page, and then a few graphics just to show what the impact is long term on our borrowing capacity. Just to summarize, this first page here, the first table that we see on top, like I said, we have self-imposed limits based on the type of loan that it is. If it's tax supported, we have a 10% limit based on our policy. This isn't based on the province, but on our policy. And if it's water and sewer supported, then we have a 15% of our revenue net limit. So you see what those numbers represent in dollars. Our limitation on annual repayment for 2019 for tax-supported debt is $1.7 million. We're currently at $316,000. This is including all the current loans that have already been issued. For water and sewer supported, we have a limit of $848,000, and we're currently at $468,000 with our current debts. Juste un astérix pour mentionner pour notre politique puis pour notre limitation de 15% sur les dettes d'eau et d'égout. On a décidé d'exclure la dette pour le projet d'eau Ottawa, pour le Watermain Ottawa, étant donné que c'est un très gros. On a fait un emprunt de 14 millions pour ceci, puis ça représente des paiements annuels d'environ 900 000 $ par année. Donc, pour ce qui est de la limite d'eau et d'égout, on voulait se donner une limite qui nous donne quand même une marge. That being said, this loan is included in the overall limit. So when we say we have a 15% limit for the overall debt, we are including that $800 or that $900,000 payment on the Ottawa loan. So when you see, so that's why if you look at the third row or the third column, 316 plus 468 isn't 1.6 million, because in the 468 we're not including that $900,000 payment for the Ottawa loan. So, je sais pas si c'était clair. On a passé à travers quand on a présenté la politique en 2018, mais c'est d'autres questions aussi.
So from, if I understand this properly, 1.6 and 3.4, so we could almost double the amount of debt payments we have, but obviously that means we have to pay that doubling, we'd have to take the money from somewhere, which most likely would be taxation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it gives us an understanding of what,
Right.
similar when you go to a bank and you say, you know, they pre-approve you saying you could borrow this much for a mortgage. This essentially is what we could go up to if we wanted to.
That's correct, yeah. Okay. And like I said, these are really self-imposed limits that we're giving ourselves to kind of make sure we have a responsible management of our debt, and that we don't just move forward with projects without knowing the long-term impacts and the impact it could have on our financial capacity in the future. Donc,
Conseiller Buisson?
oui.
Juste de misère de comprendre un peu pourquoi il avait été enlevé l'autre longue si on s'était self-imposé
Ouais.
l'eau.
Donc, la raison, si tu regardes le tableau en ce moment, si on voulait inclure, donc si tu regardes la ligne de Water and Sewer Rate Supported, donc la limite de 848 000,
Mhm.
si on incluait l'emprunt d'autoroute dans cette analyse ici, notre current annual repayment pour eau et goût serait d'environ 1,3 million. Donc, on aurait déjà dépassé le 15%. Donc, en fait, ça serait comme dire, on est passé notre limite, donc on ne fait plus aucun emprunt pour eau et goût. Peut-être, ça aurait été une option de dire ça, étant donné qu'on a un gros emprunt déjà. Par contre, on s'est dit que des fois, c'est souvent des projets d'eau et des projets d'égout, c'est des projets qui nous permettent d'avoir la croissance. Si c'est fait d'une façon responsable, ça peut être des bonnes emprunts à faire. C'est sûr qu'il ne faut pas ignorer cet emprunt-là parce que c'est un emprunt qu'on a jusqu'en 2031 qui représente des gros paiements à chaque année. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'on a quand même inclus ce montant-là quand on regarde notre dette globale. Si on regarde au 3,4 millions puis le 1,6, c'est là qu'on voit que la dette d'Ottawa a vraiment affecté le 1,6.
Fait que ça aurait revenu semblable que si au lieu de self-imposer de 15%, on aurait resté à 25% de la province, puis de l'avoir montré là, ça aurait revenu de quoi semblable, parce que là, tu aurais eu encore un peu de jeu dans l'eau et les égouts, au lieu de le voir juste overall.
Oui, ça aurait été une différente façon de
Qu'il y
Et
aurait
juste clarifier quelque chose aussi que je pense pas que j'ai mentionné tantôt, mais le 10% au tax supported, c'est pas 10% de nos revenus nets global, c'est 10% des revenus de taxation. Puis le 15%, c'est 15% des revenus de haut et goût. Donc puis le 25%, mais là, c'est le 15% de overall, ça c'est vraiment 15% de tout.
le 10, c'est rien que les taxes, tandis que 15%, c'est les taxes et les revenus de toutes les arénas, le don, toutes ces choses-là.
C'est ça.
Conseiller Lorraine and Councillor Janowski?
Yeah, I guess, the biggest difference for me is that the water and sewer ones are user fee based and are paid through user fee, which I've always equated to a mortgage type of scenario. You're amortizing over time, a water project. I think a lot of municipalities in the province would love the fact if the province would take out that user fee based calculation out of the 25% debt capacity, because it really hinders a lot of municipalities. Like the fact that you guys are taking it out just to show us on this. Obviously, it would count on the 25 when the province looks at it, but for us, I think we need to ensure that we see, I think it was 83% of our debt is the water project,
Yeah.
which is a mortgage. It's not, it's not something that we're indebted from taxation and that we have to pay that over time. This is strictly user-based, and again, in my opinion, and opinion of a lot of municipalities, it shouldn't be calculated in our debt capacity because it's already accounted for on a user-based system. The taxes aren't gonna pay for that. And our debt capacity should be tax supported, in my opinion, so. Just wanna make that distinction when we're talking about people, you hear it all the time, we're indebted up to our ears, we can't afford anything. Well, no, that's not the case. We aren't bad, in fact, we're actually in a very good financial position. And people need to understand that. We hear it all the time when we do our election campaigns and all that stuff, and no, we're in a good position, and we need to make sure that we highlight that, so.
If you don't consider asset replacement, asset management. Because long-term, we know that these things will need to be repaired.
Yeah, and the province, and we also know the province and the federal government are gonna have to chip into municipalities for that, and they have in the past. Like, we're never going to be able to account for ourselves through asset management to replace the Ottawa Water Project like we did. However, there are people that think that we could, and you can't. You're never gonna be able to do it. We needed that COMRIF grant to be able to do that project to begin with. So if that ever has to be redone again, how do you think we're gonna pay for it? We're never gonna be able to reserve enough for it to do it again,
Right, no,
right?
I understand.
So, I understand, we talk about asset management, we gotta keep reserve. No municipality is ever going to fully 100% be able to reserve for everything.
That's correct.
It's impossible.
But you can't just assume that the province and the federal will be there when we need them. because it's not necessarily the case. We see that across Ontario and we see that across Canada, where there's municipalities that are in dire straits that need money and they're not receiving it. At the end of the day, there's only, every level of government is limited with their funds and how they distribute it. That's always the tricky part. Councillor Tarnowski?
Just a procedural question. So we self-impose a 15% here at Russell Township, and it's a total, based on total. And then for this water sewer, which I understand that we're well below our debt capacity, the way it's explained here, but so why do we have that 15% specific for water and sewer if we're not even following? Not that we're not following it, but I know that we're in good position and everything else, but just simply why do we have it? I don't know.
Monsieur Godet?
Well, I mean, we have it so that we still want to have a certain control and a certain directive of a certain responsibility regarding water and sewer. It's higher than the tax supported limit, and that's based on when we did this exercise, we hired a consultant from economics firm, and we've had some consultations there regarding what's the standard practice, what do we feel is reasonable, what based on their expertise found reasonable. They evaluate the risk, like what's the worst case scenario if ever, what could happen really if we did have debts in this category, that category, and essentially the decision of 15%. It's a number that we came up with based on all those criteria that we've identified. And looking at the Ottawa debt, and I understand what you mean when you say we don't follow it because we're excluding that debt, but I wouldn't say that we're not following. I think we made a conscious decision to take that debt out of the picture because it represents such a big number, and it would kind of dominate the whole. It throws off pretty much everything else because if we look at that $900,000 that we have in annual payments. And if we're making another loan that's going to create a $75,000 loan payment or annual payment, we could say, well, it's nothing because it's not impacting our limits that much, right? Because of that 900. So being an outlier like that, we decided we should just take it out of the equation and have a new formula just so that our remaining debt is at least kind of controlled by certain things. So that's kind of how the process went.
Conseiller Deschamps?
Juste clarifier, là, c'est un peu comme dire si là, il a décidé de le mettre dans l'overall seulement au lieu de. Ça serait comme dire autrement si avec Park and Rec, on mettrait la limite de 15%, mais là que tu as le dôme puis le rec dedans, avec le dôme, que là tu pourras plus en emprunter dans ce département-là pour rien d'autre. Que l'autre, c'est que oui, c'est payé par les taxes d'eau, mais que justement, c'est pour refléter que dans le général, c'est pas la fin du monde, c'est rien qu'un département. C'est ça que.
Oui, je pense que tu as bien saisi. Puis aussi, c'est quand même aussi important. Tu sais, je viens d'expliquer pourquoi on a exclu de la section de Water Sewer Rates. Mais c'est quand même bien important qu'on le garde dans l'overall parce que c'est une dette réelle qu'on doit payer chaque année pour une période de 25 ans.
Continue, M. Godin.
Donc, les prochaines pages, je ne change pas tout de suite, mais les prochaines pages vont montrer un petit peu les graphiques de où qu'on est et où qu'on va être basé sur certains projets qu'on a d'anticiper dans le futur. Au bas, ce qu'on voit ici, c'est pour faire l'exercice, il fallait faire des hypothèses de projets qu'on va aller de l'avant. Donc, on s'est basé beaucoup sur nos études, sur notre développement, sur les master plans des départements, sur des discussions qu'on a eues avec le conseil. On a établi une liste de projets qui sont qu'on a jugés qui sont majeurs, qui ont des implications financières majeures. Puis on a estimé les années qui sont projetées, puis les termes de financement, puis le montant d'emprunt qu'on pourrait potentiellement faire pour tous ces emprunts, pour tous ces projets-là. Donc les montants, les graphiques que vous allez voir dans les prochaines pages prennent en considération la colonne taxes, water rates and loans. Donc dans le fond, on fait un petit peu comme un worst case scenario pour chacun de ces projets-là, qu'on fasse un emprunt du montant qui est identifié dans la colonne de droite. Donc, par exemple, si on regarde au parc industriel, le 417 Industrial Park, on a un emprunt de 13 millions qui est prévu en 2020. Est-ce que ça va arriver? C'est certain qu'il va y avoir beaucoup de discussions avec le conseil avant qu'on aille de l'avant avec un projet de même. On va tenter peut-être d'avoir des emprunts ou qu'on va avoir, ou des octrois, excuse, ou qu'on va avoir une participation des résidents ou des propriétaires affectés. Donc, c'est certain que c'est vraiment un worst case qu'on présente ici, mais c'est quand même pour we still wanted to show this to council so that you can have really a big picture of what these projects could represent if they were financed through loans at the year that they're projected. Donc ça, c'est la liste des projets. Ceux que vous voyez pour 2019, c'est qu'elles sont inclus dans le projet 2019. Donc on a vu l'édifice de l'ambulance, le parc industriel, la Châtaigne, le pont Saint-Joseph, puis le parc commercial d'Anvers, mais ça c'est un projet de 2019. On a mis un emprunt, par contre, on regarde nos options de financement avec les propriétaires, puis on va avoir un règlement qui permet au conseil bientôt. Mais juste pour vous mettre un petit peu en contexte, ça c'est les projets qui sont considérés ici pour l'analyse qui a été faite.
Conseiller Buisson?
Juste peut-être que c'est là, mais que je ne le vois pas non plus. Mais comme quand il y a le projet, comme je prends l'exemple de 13 millions pour le parc commercial, mais c'est un emprunt de 20 ans, tout ça. Y a-t-il une place que ça sera marqué une ligne? Ça équivaut à combien par année pour dire, OK, ben si on va à ce chose-là, ben ça prend 300 000 de notre capacité d'overall. Ou si, tu sais, pour avoir chaque projet, c'est combien que ça représente? Dire, OK, ben 1, 2, 3, ça fait ce total-là additionné. Je ne sais pas si on a cette ligne-là ou si je le vois juste pas.
Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, M. le maire. Donc, bonne question, conseiller Bousson. Dans l'annexe D, cette information-là spécifique n'est pas incluse. Ce que vous allez voir, par contre, c'est dans les tableaux. Peut-être, Marie, c'est là la prochaine page. Tu vas voir l'impact par année. Si on regarde, juste pour répondre à ta question, là, la section bleue, si tu regardes 2020, la section bleue, tu vois 400 000. Ça, c'est les paiements d'emprunt pour tous les projets
De cette année-là.
de l'année, dans le fond, des emprunts de 2019 qui vont commencer, les paiements vont commencer en 2020. Ça, c'est l'impact. Donc, 400 000, ça représente les paiements pour les 3 ou les 4 projets de 2019.
On n'est pas
En ce moment, non, mais je pense que c'est quelque chose qu'on pourrait ajouter à ça.
Justement, pour si on fait une prioriser certains projets,
Tu peux connaître l'impact.
pour connaître l'impact, OK, tu dis, ben on fait celui-là, mais on ne peut pas s'afforder les 4 ou les... Je pense que ça sera bon de...
Conseiller Lorrain?
Another thing to consider here, though, when we talk about this and we see what we can afford and what we can't afford, we also have to understand that we self-imposed a 15%.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's a hard 15% that we can never go over, right? I mean, the province allows us to go to 25 if needed, so that's an extra 10% that if we needed to go over, we could, without impacting the province's debt capacity. So I like this slide. It shows us where we are. It shows in comparison, but let's remember that the 15 is a soft cap, not a hard cap.
As I was saying, it's just that if we have that line saying, and then if we decide, okay, the complex center, it represents maybe 300,000, but if it's double that we decide to go bigger, oh, it's okay. We have a number to work with to have.
It'd be nice if it was only 300,000.
Non, je sais, mais, non, mais comme
Oui, je
je
comprends.
comprends le principe que
Ouais.
dire, OK, ben, si quelqu'un nous approche aussi, dire, ben, je veux la piscine, puis je veux les 3 rings, puis tout ça, ben là, si tu parles plus de 22 millions, tu parles de 40 ou 50 millions, ben dire, OK, ben,
It's broken down. puis
c'est pour ça que j'aimerais bien avoir cette ligne-là supplémentaire.
Monsieur Godin, dans ta ligne verte, là, le self-imposed à 15%, là, is that taken into consideration, that's just the debt capacity, but we also have the income, the revenue stream from a lot of these projects, right? Ambulance station, that kind of stuff. So,
That's why it's,
That's why it's going up.
That's why it's going up. Basically, it's going up. We've used a simple, I think it's a 5% increase per year, and it's really based on previous years that we've analyzed. I think if we keep, I think it's reasonable to say if we increase our investments and build into the building of new facilities and stuff like that, that would generate more revenues, and we could see a spike.
So
in-
this 5% increase is really more on the side of taxation, new growth coming in, and it's not necessarily per project, the income
Right,
of the
no.
ambulance building. Or
No, it's not
the-
basic.
Like the 13 million, we know that a lot of it will be the land users that are repaying that, right? So that's not necessarily included in that, but I just, okay, perfect.
That's correct.
Councillor Janowski?
So this is a really good way of looking at it for the future for planning. But this doesn't take into account, just a couple of just questions. So this wouldn't impact, like, if a grant comes in for something, for infrastructure, this could speed up some of the process, or if we decide, for example, on the major project, the complex, if we do it in phases, where we can do it earlier because it would be like parts of it or something like that. Thank you.
If we want to show, if we were to borrow everything,
What's the impact?
what's the impact? We know it's probably not gonna be that, so this is the worst case scenario.
Merci, Emile.
And just maybe to elaborate on that, I mean, I think it's kind of a first, maybe not a first step, but a step from the administration to try to shift the focus of financial presentations on looking future years instead of always presenting statistics from the historical. We want to show potential, what it could look like, and it's a tool for council to look at, okay, and maybe to be able at some point to say, this is where we're going to be ready to go, so we have a clearer idea of we're going to go forward with this project if we have X amount of grant, or if we're able to do X amount of fundraising or whatnot. So I think this graph is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll still go through it. Basically, the green that we're seeing is our current loans. So obviously the green doesn't go up; it does go down as some loan terms come to an end. The blue is the impact from all the projects that are listed in that previous page. What's going to happen if we do go forward with all those projects? And like I said, they were kind of the worst case scenario. So we can expect that blue to shift a bit down potentially, or up depending on if the scope of the project goes up as well. It's just to give you context of what the impact is on our debt capacity based on those hypotheses. And so this first one here is really based on the overall debt. So we're looking at the 25% from the province and the 15% on our overall net revenues. The spikes that we can see in 2021, basically we had a big increase, and I believe that's due to the 417 Industrial Park servicing. That is scheduled in our table to be done in 2020.
2024 would be the rec complex.
The rec complex, exactly.
So, Conseiller Brisson?
Mais comme en vert, tu dis c'est des loans qu'on a comme c'est là, mais je vois que comme à tous les 2 ou 3 ans, ça diminue, tout ça, mais ça ne devra pas comme rester constant. Je comprends quand un loan est fini, mais qu'est-ce qui reste à payer? Il y a plus que, il en reste comme plus que 3 ans, quoi que ce soit. C'est pour ça que je voulais juste, tu parles pas des gros montants, mais juste expliquer pourquoi que c'est pas...
Donc, par exemple, la première diminution qu'on voit, c'est en 2021. C'est parce qu'on a un certain emprunt qu'on a en ce moment, qu'on a des paiements annuels peut-être de 12 000 par année, qui prend fin, le terme de l'emprunt prend fin en 2020. On va avoir fini de faire ces paiements-là en 2020. Ce qui veut dire qu'en 2021, cet espace-là s'est libéré dans notre capacité.
On s'en est déjà d'autres emprunts.
Oui, le vert, c'est les emprunts qu'on a présentement. Okay.
Mais c'est
on
ça.
paye à mesure, c'est certain que ça va diminuer.
OK, ben c'est ça. Je pensais que c'était tous des emprunts qui restaient pour plus à long terme, c'est ça. Donc, on a des emprunts qui viennent à l'échéance dans les prochaines années.
Ces années-là. Monsieur le Duc?
Ça, c'était le portrait en date d'aujourd'hui, parce que c'est effectivement l'année prochaine, avec un emprunt qu'on prend,
Ça
les
va
lignes
monter.
vertes vont changer l'année
Oh, oui,
prochaine.
c'est-
Ils peuvent monter. Juste pour être clair, ça reste pas toujours dans
Non. Conseiller Laurent?
Yeah, the thing to remember is those are the repayment amounts, those aren't the loan amounts themselves, right? So you're not gonna see that necessarily that diminishing scale. If it was one loan and the amount was 316,000, it would stay 316 all the way across until it's done. The only reason it's going down is because the other loans are dropping off.
That's why thought that they were quite all long-term loans, so there's just a few that are drawing.
Well, there could be some that were long-term, it's just they're
Yeah.
finishing in the
Yeah,
next few years. Counselor Kanowski.
So in line with that same kind of discussion, we're assuming current interest rates that aren't changing. So if interest rates are changed, this would skew the whole.
Yeah. So basically, this graph is really based on today's rates, and we always use Infrastructure Ontario as our reference base because that's where we often go for our rates, and those are rates that are oftentimes lower than the private market specifically for municipalities.
Counselor Laurent?
And usually Infrastructure Ontario will give us a rate for the full term of the loan and we won't have to re-amortize every 5 years. So that's the security we get with going with Infrastructure Ontario is we have it for the term so the rate doesn't change.
The only
We don't see that fluctuation.
The only flip side to that is if we don't have the option to pay off a loan early if we decided that we wanted to, right? All of a sudden we get an influx for whatever reason, let's pay off a loan. We
take the
can't do it
others.
because we're locked in for that period of time.
Take the other one.
That's right. Yeah. So if we would be in a situation where rates are going down, well, we're still stuck with that rate that we signed. That's correct.
Au niveau qu'on est comme ces gars, ils vont nous payer pour faire un profit.
Just a side note, because I know it's not included in this, but I think it's good to give context. We just checked like a $20 million loan. If we were to make a $20 million, because since we're talking about annual payments and not loan amounts, a $20 million loan on 20 years with today's rate would represent $1.4 million in annual payments. So just 1.4 million pour 20 millions sur 20 ans.
Pour un.
Oui.
Ok. Donc, c'est pas question là-dessus. Les deux prochaines pages, c'est la même chose, mais on vous montre un petit peu au niveau de la limite pour notre tax supported debt. Donc, le 1,68 millions en 2019, ça représente 15% de nos revenus nets générés par des départements supportés par la taxation. Donc là, on voit en ce moment, on a quand même beaucoup d'espace en date pour 2019. On voit qu'en 2024, si on était pour faire un emprunt pour le REC Complex, ici on a un emprunt de 18 millions, ça nous apporterait près de notre limite de 15% à ce moment-là.
Prochaine page.
La prochaine page, c'est la même affaire, mais pour le département d'eau et d'égout. À ce moment ici, on voit qu'on est quand même plus proche de notre limite imposée en date d'aujourd'hui, puis qu'en 2021, si on n'avait pas le choix d'aller de l'avant avec un emprunt de 13 millions pour le servicing du parc industriel, ça dépasserait, ça nous apporterait bien au-delà de notre limite conseillée.
Ça l'inclut-tu l'autoroute?
Non.
Non. Juste pour certain.
Yeah, so this doesn't include the Ottawa. This is really that 15% for the water and sewer, and the current debts do not include the Ottawa debt.
Monsieur Leduc?
So this is why we're always hesitant about the 417 Industrial Park Servicing Project until we get some grant information from the province or the feds. This is why we're holding off. We're soliciting their assistance. It's exactly why we're hesitant at this point.
Conseiller Busson?
Mais ça, c'est du graphique que c'est sans la participation des propriétaires.
Ouais, donc la participation des propriétaires n'est pas prise en considération ici.
C'est si on
c'est
prend
vraiment le worst
l'emprunt
case.
complet, puis on prendrait tout sur notre.
Puis la raison aussi qu'on a présenté ça comme ça, c'est parce que souvent, même si on charge aux résidents, aux propriétaires, on va leur donner des termes de financement des fois, donc on doit quand même absorber le coût initial, puis pour faire ça, pour le cash flow, on doit quand même prévoir quelque chose.
Le cash flow prend le coup pour ça, mais
Si le projet de 13
Ouais,
millions
c'est-
divisé, tout le monde on va de l'avance.
s'ils sont
Tout le monde va payer leur portion, mais
Mais
ça se
pas
peut que ça
dans la
prend
même.
20,
C'est ça.
tu sais, ça
Ça
peut
va
être
être sur
20
20
ans. Dépendant comment le conseil décide de mettre en place. Parfait.
Donc, la dernière page, c'est un petit peu la même information qui est présentée dans le graphique, sauf plus en chiffres. Donc, sans nécessairement passer à travers au complet. C'est vraiment, on voit nos revenus nets pour chacune des catégories Après ça, c'est le calcul de notre limite. Nos paiements existants, si on regarde la colonne de total, nos paiements existants de 1,6 million, environ au milieu de la page. Ensuite, les nouvelles dettes qui sont proposées pour 2019. Puis notre nouveau paiement, donc la bottom line en bas, c'est le 1,3 million, c'est suivant nos emprunts 2019, c'est qu'est-ce qui va nous rester comme capacité d'emprunt qu'on peut ajouter à nos paiements annuels.
Question?
C'est ça, on a passé vraiment vite, donc si jamais il y a des questions aussi après, pour le camp, vous pouvez nous contacter. Ne saurez pas. Donc on peut retourner à la présentation. Donc, juste quelques slides pour highlighter les emprunts de cette année. En 2018, on a fait un emprunt pour l'achat d'un terrain. Juste à côté du terrain pour le Sportsdome. En 2019, les emprunts qui sont anticipés, le banque commercial, comme on a discuté, ça, on va revenir au conseil avec les options, puis avec comment on va se prendre aussi pour les propriétaires, la facturation, tout ça. Donc, ça se peut qu'il n'y ait pas d'emprunt qui soit nécessaire pour celui-là, mais ça se pourrait plus, on va avoir ces discussions-là. Les trois autres, c'est encore les édifices pour les ambulances, le pont Saint-Joseph, puis l'achat de terrain au parc industriel. Juste pour vous donner un historique de nos emprunts depuis 2016, la colonne totale, ça représente vraiment le total des paiements qui nous restent en capital et intérêt. Donc, ce n'est pas le montant qu'on a emprunté, mais c'est vraiment le montant qu'on est commis à repayer. Quand on regarde le 32,1 millions. Puis, un petit peu la même information, mais là, présentée pour vous montrer la différence. De ces emprunts-là, qu'est-ce qu'ils représentent? Qu'est-ce qui est catégorisé dans eau et égout et qu'est-ce qui est catégorisé dans les départements supportés par la taxation. Donc, on voit que environ 75% de nos paiements d'emprunt, c'est pour eau et égout. Environ 25%, c'est pour les départements qui sont supportés par la taxation.
La grosse augmentation en 2019. 6 millions de plus.
Oui, donc ça représente vraiment les trois emprunts pour le parc industriel, pour l'édifice ambulance. Puis, ouais. C'est ça. Les conseils.
Puis les paiements.
Oui, le terrain.
Mais il faut se rappeler que station d'ambulance, c'est une grosse dépense, mais on a un revenu qui va générer des revenus.
Ça aussi, c'est pas tout de suite, ça embarque dans notre capacité, ça ferait. Il y a 2 millions qui.
Oui, puis donc c'est certain que quand on vous a présenté le plan financier aussi, les revenus qu'on anticipe collectés vont couvrir les paiements de dette.
Oui.
Au niveau de la capacité d'emprunt, par exemple, il y a juste 25% de ces revenus-là qui viennent augmenter notre capacité. Donc c'est sûr qu'il y a quand même un impact là-dessus.
Mais comparativement, le pont, l'emprunt du pont, ça ne génère pas de l'argent, mais l'ambulance, l'exploitation de l'ambulance génère de l'argent.
Et c'est pas 25%, on self-impose 15%, c'est pas pour ça.
Oui, non.
C'est même pas, c'est pas encore, c'est avec 15% parce qu'on self-impose 15%.
Oui, c'est ça. Donc, c'était tout pour la dette. Est-ce qu'il y a des questions?
Non. Conseiller Brisson?
Juste, est-ce qu'on a la liste des différents emprunts puis quand est-ce qu'ils viennent à échéance?
Oui, on a cette liste. Elle n'est pas inclue dans le catalogue ou dans la présentation, donc c'est quelque chose qu'on peut définitivement circuler.
C'est comme chaque emprunt, c'est quoi le paiement, puis savoir dire, OK, dans 2 ans, oups, ben on l'a vu un petit peu là, dans le vert, là, qui représentait, mais c'est
On l'a déjà vu dans différents rapports, mais ça peut être envoyé aux membres du conseil.
Je pense que c'est peut-être quelque chose que je peux ajouter à l'annexe, puis vous laissez aussi.
Okay.
On va commencer avec les demandes.
Oui, donc, Marie, ça serait la cédule E. On a préparé le tableau des demandes du public, ainsi que les valeurs qui ont été incluses dans le budget, s'il y en a eu, puis les commentaires sur certaines
Okay. So, alors, just to reiterate these, some might be included if they were operational in nature and the departments were able to include it. If they're not included, then it's up to council to, if council members want to see it, either they ask that we increase taxation to cover it, or we make suggestions of where we'd like to see funds cut in order to move this project ahead. So we'll take it line by line.
So, il n'y a rien d'inclus dedans comme ça, là.
Non, s'il y a quelque chose qui est inclus dans le côté opérationnel, ça va être indiqué.
Ah, ok.
But let's go line by line. Councillor Karnowski?
Sorry, can we just clarify right away, any of them that are already included, we can just take out? Because what's the point of going through them if we've already kind of, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, we'll just mention that there's a percentage that's in that has been attributed in the operational, or
Okay.
it could have been work that was looking to be done anyways by the administration, so. We can fly through these, I don't think, in any time. So the first one, I see the request from the Citizens Environmental Service Association for 5,000. That's not included in the budget. Is this something that we wanted to see included in the budget? Councillor Saucier?
I can just give a little explanation. They're proposing to have a human health risk study done for
We-
No, that's not what the
No,
request.
well, we know what the request was, it's, do we wanna put it in the budget, yes or no?
Okay, well, do you wanna explain it a little bit more, cause that's what I thought it was for.
It was their,
They're pursuing, it's for money for the lawyer
to
to,
go
to
to,
look,
against Ottawa,
yeah,
because they didn't do the health human risk assessment.
That's
They're
why-
going to the, what's it called, LPAT now? The
OMB.
old OMB, to say, we want this to be included. They wanna force the company to do this study,
Right.
but it's not for the study itself.
yeah. That's why for myself,
That's
if it
nice.
would have been for the study, I would have been more ready personally. But to go, like a municipality, to give them, some money, to go against another municipality, personally, I have a bit of problem.
It's not against the municipality,
Oui.
it's to go, for Taggart Miller, that they didn't include that in the,
Yes, but they're
Or-
challenging the
The
city of
municipal.
Ottawa at the OMB.
C'est ça.
That's what's going on, because the city of Ottawa didn't impose that this be a
Study.
requirement.
C'est ça.
It was part of the, environmental assessment. It wasn't included.
That's why for myself, I'm,
It does affect our citizens, that's the only thing.
So you would like to see it included?
Yes.
Okay, so are you suggesting that we raise that tax of $5,000 or that we cut from somewhere else?
I'm not saying that we have to, cover the whole cost, but, maybe, I just feel that it affects us all, this dump that's going to be there. And it affects the air quality and it affects the schools and so that's, kind of my concern.
Councillor Karnowski?
so I'll just make a request again. It'd be a lot easier for me to discuss that if I knew that 7 or 8 of these are already signed up because they're part of it. So can we just
Right.
highlight those that are signed up?
Okay.
And then we can go back to the ones, instead of like piecemealing them, I'll get a bigger picture.
Well, which ones are included in the budget already?
Operational budgets are included.
So, c'est-tu, on the list, c'est-tu inclus? J'ai pas la liste en avant de moi.
Like numéro 3, like number 3 is number 3 on there? Like for the chairs, for the budget opérationnel.
Bon, oui, dans la cédule, la deuxième colonne de la loi, ça indique le montant qui est inclus dans le budget.
Okay, so Vala
Check off, yeah.
included an annual budget. So in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th column, if there's nothing in that column, that means nothing's been included.
That's correct.
Okay, so number 3 and number 4 are pretty much addressed, is what you're saying? And then number 8 is addressed. Okay. There's three of them.
Okay.
I don't think there's more than that.
Give me those numbers again.
Number 3, 4, 8.
Oh, okay. All right.
Number two.
Sorry, number 2 is already there. And if I look at number 12, there's no amount there, but the traffic study already completed, so does that address that?
Numéro 12, Maryse, on peut baisser sur la 15. It's a traffic study for the intersection Route 300, 400 Limoges Road. Ça, c'était fait par les Côtes-Unis. Par nous, c'est fait. So it's completed.
Okay.
Monsieur Leduc?
That means in that study, there are options already identified as to the remedies for the intersection. It's already been done.
Okay, so,
But
I mean, now they're looking for,
a remedy.
they're looking for some, at one point in time, an action plan to remedy the corner.
We haven't
But the work has
included
been
that.
done as far as the study goes. So we know the options.
Si on veut installer la lumière, là, c'est des coûts supplémentaires. Une lumière ou quoi que ce soit. C'est,
That's a county decision.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, both.
What's that?
Share.
We did share.
But the intersection is controlled by the counties.
Yeah.
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, M. Maire. Donc, juste pour mentionner aussi le point 17 et 18, c'est pour le chemin Force puis le chemin McDonald. Donc, on a eu des discussions aussi par rapport à ça. En ce moment, on n'a pas de montant inclus, sauf que le 356 000, vous avez exprimé un intérêt d'appuyer en ce projet-là.
okay. Okay. Okay, we checked out a bunch of them already.
There you go. So let's go back to number 1 then. So the 5,000 for the stewardship. Councillor Associate would like to see it included. Is there other members of council that want to include this in the budget?
Non, c'est pas la
No? 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 Okay, so this line item where is not being included in the budget. The next item is item 5, which is the addition at Christmas to every lights. So Marionville is looking for a few more lights. Can we, how much were the lights, Monsieur Bourgon? Do we have a per light cost or estimate?
With the purchase of one light, the layout by hydro and installation, we're talking about $1,100.
$1,100 a light. Okay. Well, I'm thinking of lights. I was driving through Limoges the other day. The lights look fantastic. They're a nice blue. Perhaps next year we can mix some of the blue and white in the villages. Just comment, a thought. Do we want to include more lights in Marionville? Is there, Councillor Associate?
Although I think it's a wonderful idea, again, I'm saying here's $6,000 for lights, but we wouldn't do $5,000 for help for our entire community.
So
So
you're saying no.
I'm saying no.
Everybody else? Anybody want to move this one forward?
Where are we getting the number 6,000?
Yeah,
Isn't that
I
what
thought
it
it was
was?
7,000 just in
For
case.
one light.
I don't see anything.
It's roughly $1,100 a light. Is there a request for?
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. I apologize. No,
So-
this is
We don't know how many posts were on that road, that section there to the church, extremity of the village. How many posts are we talking about? 3, 4 probably, at least. So it's roughly about $5,000-6,000. So is there, no, I don't see any interest to move this one forward. Monsieur Leduc?
I give you the admin perspective, Mr. Mayor and Council. I think the last 5 years, if we could add up all the amount we put into Marionville and Center, and the park and everything else, we spent a lot of money in the last 5 years.
And I believe in this budget as well, there's already something for the centre de Marionville. Un gros statut, un air conditionné? Non.
No.
C'est les choses.
Les chaises.
Ah, les chaises. Non, mais du côté capital, il n'y avait rien à Marionville cette année.
No, because it's a small amount, so I'll get it through the operation.
Okay.
And there's still the grants that are approved also here. There's $4,000 of grants
Monsieur Leduc?
We're also putting an extra $15,000 in the
Yeah.
park for the net.
for the grants.
Okay, parfait. So we can move on to the next item. Marionville, number 6, Marionville Road, that, for Marionville, nope, am I reading the right one here?
No,
Oh,
number
Grégoire
7.
7. Grégoire, we know that's the city of Ottawa and the counties, we don't have control on that. we push from the political side. I'll continue doing that, but it's really the City of Ottawa that's controlling that direction. Next item.
Ben, 5 et 6, c'est la même chose.
C'est différent, c'est machin.
Ah, ok. Ah,
Numéro 8.
Neuf.
9.
Vite, c'est vieux.
oui,
Installation de barbecue structure. C'est comme les tasses de structure. C'est combien qu'ils demandaient? Ah, c'est. Madame Bouffard?
There's no amount, there was no amount asked. He asked that we do the whole prep and installation, and they would purchase the barbecue. So I think for that kind of amount too, that could come out from the operation. We'll look at the project itself, because we have no numbers at all.
Yeah, okay, so once that project, if there's additional costs not able to be covered, they
It
can
could
come
be-
back
it
at
could-
council at
yeah.
that time.
on va l'acheter.
Okay. Number 10, natural gas, that's pushing from a political side as well. There's no discussion really at the budget. 11,
Outdoor fitness.
the outdoor fitness, Limoges Recreation Committee. Madame Bouffard?
Well, that was for the purchase of only one piece of equipment, so that's quite expensive, $5,000. There was also the dog park that was mentioned, so that's a bigger project, I think. The only thing is, they did not have any numbers when they came to the public request. They were supposed to get them in the following weeks. So I haven't seen anything from the dog park. I know I've seen some advertising at the fire hall, advertising sign, but I never got anything from the citizens committee.
Okay. Ok, monsieur le conseiller Brisson?
Juste en update, parce que je suis sur le comité de citoyens de Limoges. Les structures d'exercice, il y en a déjà qui a un montant qui a été approuvé par la Nation, justement parce qu'ils voulaient en avoir, je pense que c'était 2 ou 3, quelque chose comme ça. Il me semble que c'est 3 que justement il y aurait, c'est tout ça que je demandais, que la Nation a déjà approuvé. C'est de quoi que le monde, ils ont installé la swing, que c'est déjà relativement utilisé. Fait que c'est pour ça que je sais que l'autre a déjà été accepté. Puis c'est un projet qui peut être fait tout de suite. Tandis que le Dog Park, personnellement, je ne penserais pas que ça soit réalisable cette année, parce qu'ils ont beaucoup à déterminer encore, l'emplacement, toutes ces choses-là.
Okay.
Puis ils n'ont pas les chiffres encore parce que justement, il y a bien des études à faire. C'est que c'est dur à mettre un prix quand ils n'ont pas. Puis je prends l'exemple de notre dog park. Ça n'a pratiquement rien coûté à la municipalité parce qu'ils ont été chercher des sponsors.
Dans ce cas ici, tu suggères entre les deux projets.
Entre les deux projets, personnellement, avec la discussion, le 5 000 pour le outdoor fitness. Ça, surtout que là, ça nous met notre logo aussi dessus. Que là, souvent, ils nous disent on n'a aucune participation, Russell. Je fais juste en fait d'image aussi. Puis vu que la Nation en met un aussi, que personnellement, avec le comité, je préférerais celui-là que le dog park comme c'est là cette année.
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Godin, on peut-tu confirmer, reste-t-il une réserve? Il y aurait une réserve pour Limoges à un point.
Monsieur le maire, vous êtes correct. À un point, il y en avait.
OK? Il n'y en a plus.
Avec la lumière.
Avec les lumières cet été et cet hiver, on a écoulé une côte.
Avec les fermeurs complètes.
OK? Monsieur Godin, conseiller Godin?
Yeah, I have a problem with this one. I don't like putting installations in other municipalities, and I don't believe that Nation would support a funding into our municipality, just like North Dundas. Yeah, I believe North Dundas doesn't participate in funding on our side. Ottawa doesn't participate in funding on our side.
That's my point, yes. Okay.
So, if that's the case, then, everyone asks us to fund. I mean, look at the park in Marionville. We keep putting money in that, and we're not getting money back from the other
Just
municipalities.
clarification, the City of Ottawa and North Dundas has contributed in Marionville in the last few
Yeah,
years.
because we did put 15.
See? confirmer, Madame Guittard, Monsieur Godin, je sais qu'il y a des montants qui ont été donnés de la Ville d'Ottawa. Puis it wasn't necessarily, it was a lot larger amount than I expected them to put into the pot, if I remember well.
That is true. I think they got like 40,000 from City Water for the park, but we invested three
As
times
well.
the amount, but that's still.
Wow.
And in Limoges, we also have to say that we pay for the maintenance to South Nation for Nokomis, which is $3,500 a year. And I know that park is really used by the residents.
And I know
So we
when-
do give something to Limoges.
I know when we put the gazebo in and we were looking for money from the other two sides, and I was on the committee at the time, there was no funding from anybody else.
You're right about that. That
So,
gazebo was 40,000.
and that gazebo would benefit both, people from all three sides,
Yeah.
and we got nothing. Now we have the Citizens Committee asking us to put money into a park in, La Nation. I'm not prepared to put money into it.
Okay. Councilor Associate?
Although it sounds like a nice idea, the one concern I have is that we also wanna work on an outdoor fitness park here. So that was, I'm thinking, and we don't have the funding for that yet, so that was my concern, was, cause we talked about a disability park and an outdoor fitness park at the Dome possibly. So that's why I would, vote against this one.
Conseiller Brisson?
Just on your point that we say that we would like to have it, that will be a good example too, to see if it's used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if it's not that much use, then it's something that we don't invest in our municipality either. So that's why I said they are already, and just to clarify this, the man is coming from the
Recreation.
Recreation Committee, not the Citizen Committee, because the Citizen Committee is putting another over 5,000 too for the third equipment.
Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, so it's a recreation committee from Limoges,
Yeah.
which is on the nation side.
Yeah.
It's not our Parks and Recreation Committee that is recommending this.
No.
I just
but-
wanna make sure we're
Yeah.
talking about the right committee, the same committees and whatnot.
Yeah, but it might include residents of Russell Township on that committee.
Yeah, it could. And then the second piece is the Limoges Citizens Committee participating in funding for that, which we fund also the Limoges Citizens Committee. A certain amount every year. It's a small amount, but we still supply that amount, correct?
Yeah, if I remember well, there's approximately $500 plus certains événements, les paniers,
Yeah.
les sauces
We
à peu
give
près
almost-
1500 pièces.
We almost give $2,000 every year through the grants also to Limoges. It's about 6,000 a year.
Okay. So other questions or comments? No, it seems to be more on the negative on this one, so let's move on. Dog park, same thing. Cleanup of ditches on King Street. This is something that comes back every year, Monsieur Bourbon. Maybe you can just give us a little bit of what's the situation, what would it really take?
Yes, this item's been on their list for a few years. We do our monitoring like we do elsewhere within the township, and we do work part of operational when it's required. At this point in time, we don't feel that the necessary work was required for those sections.
Conseiller Lorrain?
Have you ever stopped and asked the people on the street whether they have an issue? Because this has been on the agenda for 12 years. And I know when the first year I ran for council and I walked down King Street, I had a couple people ask me about it, and that was it. Like, what makes it that King Street always comes in and asks for this, that makes it different than anywhere else that we clean ditches in the municipality? Like, I don't understand why that one always comes back and all the other ones really don't. Like, what are we doing differently if we are not, like,
I think it might, well, it comes through the Limoges Citizens Committee. It could be that there's one or two members that are making the complaint continuously. But I agree with you. I went down King Street and nobody ever mentioned that they wanted the ditches cleaned. But it seems to be coming back year after year, so the recommendation is just status quo. I think I'm fine with that if everybody else is status quo. Okay, we'll move on. Next item, size, it's a request that the rest of Saint Andre between Route 400 and Méréonville be asphalted properly. C'est pas dans le plan cette année. J'étais pas certain si on appelle pas du 5-year plan, là. 2021. So you leave it for 2021. Yep. Move on. Next item.
Number 19.
19. Request that Saint Jacques Road between Route 500 and Marionville Road be upgraded and better maintained. Another request, Mr. Bougon.
At this point in time, I don't recommend to council to do anything in that segment. It's an open road allowance. So basically, that segment's part of our dirt road or the unmaintained portion of roads.
Okay. Any comments on this one? No?
General.
Move on. Conseil Brisson.
Juste un commentaire général que j'avais eu par les comités. Est-ce que le conseil, comme le staff, pourrait envoyer nos résultats aux deux comités, comme Limoges et Marionville, pour les résultats de leur demande? Parce que ça avait été un request qu'il y avait eu pour savoir, ben, ça a-tu passé, ça n'a pas passé, ces choses-là.
Ben, je pense que vous êtes, une fois que c'est approuvé, vous êtes membre du comité. So, au comité, vous pouvez donner
Le mentionner.
vous pouvez donner la liste pour dire, puis le raisonnement pourquoi que le conseil a décidé, puis expliquer le budget, le processus. OK. Prochain, y avait-tu d'autres, c'est-tu la fin de la liste?
Oui.
Oui. OK, parfait. Now we move on to la liste du conseil, c'est ça? Okay, this was, I see that Monsieur Leduc looking at the top of the list, so that's okay. We'll have this discussion. But this list, members of council, this was stemming from the discussions we had one-on-one with Monsieur Leduc in regards to where we wanted, some of the things we wanted to see in our term of council. Some of the things repeat throughout members of council, but we can go through the list. One of my first item was to resolve the Emblem Library relocation project. I think that Monsieur Leduc, you have direction on that, and we're still continuing that process.
We're still working on the 2020 resolution from council to review this, so this year is part of key discussions coming up shortly.
Okay, perfect. To assess the feasibility of integrating a pool as part of a new rec complex. That is really, we know we're gonna have that dome pool complex conversation, or dome rec complex conversation. We had some during this budget, some numbers were provided. Now we have given direction to hire a consultant, that's in the budget, correct? So that's the next step. 3, provide water allocations to Limoges for growth and reviewing opportunities on purchasing land. I think we've had that, we got a letter from from Nation Township. We do have units available. That will be coming in a report to council February 4th. Okay. Finalize the 417 Industrial Park water and sewer servicing. We're always continuously looking on that. More, better, and different grant applications, seeing us thinking outside the box, explanation, understand of staff on what we would like, looking to replicate confirmed projects from elsewhere. This stems from when I'm looking, often the province and the federal will put grants available, and they'll say, and give examples. I think sometimes what happens is at the municipal level, we seem to, these are the projects we want to apply for, and we keep seem to be turned down quite often. Whereas I think sometimes we should take a step back and say, these are the grants being allocated. Maybe we should look at it more from a point of view as, are some of these projects that the province and the feds want to see done, is something we could live with? Trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Should we be, instead of saying these are the projects we want money for and not getting the money, or should we be saying, you know what, this is a project that could work in our municipality, they're giving money for this project, let's apply for it. Conseiller Brisson?
C'est ça, c'est que, d'après que je peux voir, souvent, il faut être créatif dans les demandes, que des fois, pour faire des détours, pour imaginer, pour que la demande soit acceptée, je suis sûr qu'ils en font déjà, mais que j'ai déjà vu des demandes là, qui...
Ben, je pense que l'exemple parfait, c'est qu'on l'a vu avec le Canada 150 grant, where one of the items they specifically said was recreational trails. We applied for recreation, it's a few times they list as an example recreational trail. We apply specifically for that and get that, whereas in the counties, the 8 municipalities applied, I think we were one of the only ones to get the grant because everybody else was applying for stuff that wasn't really, the province wasn't looking to fund. In other words, they give examples. Well, when they give examples, maybe that's a hint. This is what we would like to see. Maybe we should be starting to say we have to change the way we look at applying for grants. Just a suggestion. Item 6 I had mentioned was a smart board in the mayor's office. More and more, we're holding meetings in my office with potential developers, with businesses. I'm not looking to include this in the budget this year. They are more expensive than I realized. Maybe if I don't do conventions one year, that's a possibility down the road. But I just thought it'd be something we should be looking at. Councilor Lorrain?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe a smart board is about $3,000-$3,500 in that range.
Well, the one.
Well, the ones in the classroom, the ones in the classrooms are $3,000 to $3,500.
I think if they buy them both.
The ones we got quotes for, it's about $6,000.
Okay. The mayor usually gets an amount from the counties every year of what, $10,000?
Yeah.
So that might be something to consider for next year's allocation.
Unfortunately, the county money is specifically for community related.
Yeah.
You know.
And we have to report it.
Okay, but it's
We have to report it back.
so
unless-
we offset another project with that, and you know what I mean, like.
So we could invest $10,000 in Parks and Rec, and Parks and Rec can buy a smart board. That's what you're saying.
Exactly what I'm saying.
We in the budget, the $10,000 wasn't allocated anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Le plein montant. Okay. Normally we've been including it in our
Cinq,
pool.
cinq.
C'est ça, c'est 10.
It's like the work cycle.
Well,
Oh,
normally.
okay, yeah, I see what you mean, yeah. There was 5,000 for you and 5,000 for us.
Okay. So
But we did
there's.
send a letter to counties and everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, in the 2019 budget, is that l'as-tu inclus dans ton budget le 5 000 piastres?
I'm not sure if I did.
Okay.
Okay.
So.
We did it.
Yeah.
Hein?
We did it.
You did it.
So
Le
you had
5
no
000 ou le
choice.
10 000?
Le 10 000.
Le 10 000, okay.
5 là,
Cinq.
5 là.
5 là. Okay, so there's a 5,000 that we could tweak if we wanted to. Councillor Tarnowski?
Sorry. Just for the record, a projector is about $1,000, and all you need is a white wall and a computer. So that's what we do in schools.
But that's true.
That's what they do in schools, because
In college, yes.
in college. I was going to say everywhere else. it's-
Every elementary
Retreat.
classroom has one now.
And high schools come that way as well. Okay, that's something we can discuss. We know we can tweak if need be. This wasn't on the list, but I am going to ask the question, just for clarification, to manage expectations. I would like to know what the expectations of council are in regards to the la position de maire. Are you seeing this as a part-time position? Are you seeing this as a full-time position? I just want council to give me some feedback so I can manage what the expectations of the role are. I don't know if Councillor Saucier?
I'm curious what it's classified as, because it must be classified as either sort of part-time or full-time, but I know, I think that work pretty much full-time on this, so, you know, that's, sort of my observation, with, being in the office and then being accessible and also at events and what have you, but, I'm just curious, is it got a, Monsieur Leduc, is it got a, like saying when someone becomes mayor, what's the expectation?
There is, Mr. Leduc, I don't believe there's any
No.
classification anywhere.
Okay.
So, as members of council know, I sold my business last year. So I just, you know, I'm looking to see what the expectations are of the role. I think that if we're classifying it as a part-time position, therefore, you know, I might look elsewhere at one point in the future. That would reduce my time here, and I don't wanna be, you know, I don't wanna get feedback from council saying, or the residents saying, well, you know, you're not doing the job you were elected to do. Councillor Kanoski?
So I have limited experience as a counselor, let alone to see what you do. You do have a nicer office than I do, but having said that.
You have an office?
Exactly. It's a drawer. So I have a full-time job, and I'm doing the counselors, and it's a challenge, especially the midnight meetings. And so so I'm gonna use that to kind of wonder how it would be possible for us to have a mayor that's able to do his or her job with the limitations that I have with a full-time job. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that it's definitely not a part-time job. And so what does that look like from a full-time job? I don't know, I don't have enough experience, but it's definitely not a part-time job, and I would expect that it's, you know, probably a full-time job.
Thank you very much. Conseil Lorrain?
I'll weigh in on two accounts. One, I know council had a discussion on this back in 2007, I believe it was, 2008. I happened to pull out an old Villager document about 6 months ago when I was going through papers, and it was talking exactly about that discussion. And there was feedback on what the council at the time was talking about in terms of salaries and all that stuff, and making the position full-time. I'm gonna quote somebody, and then I'm gonna state my opinion. To quote the person that was sitting in this chair at the exact same time that discussion was going on, and that was our former mayor, Mr. St. Pierre, is what you've been giving us so far is what the position has held. This is what you've done so far. What more are you going to do to justify the additional cost and the full-time position moniker? If there is an increase to that, then I guess that's what was said. My opinion is the position should be full-time. I thought it back in 2007, I think it's even more so today, that the position should be a full-time position. My opinion, the mayor needs to be accessible to developers from an economic development perspective, prospective people coming in, answer questions from the public, be at events, do all that stuff, be accessible to the NP and the NPP, Toronto, Ottawa, whatever that travel is. With the community that is growing as fast as we are now, and I think we're skyrocketing with the growth that we need back here, the growth that we need there, all the stuff that we have going on, I truly believe that it should be a full-time position. What that looks like, I can't tell you. What more are you going to do? I don't know. Maybe if it's a full-time position, is there additional job description that needs to come with it? I don't know the answer to that. But what is the difference between the two? Because there has to be a difference, right? Otherwise, this is what you're doing now. And
right. So I think my comment on that would be is I have treated it as a full-time position for the past 4 years. That being said, if I modify the way I'm treating the position because council decides that it's a part-time position, then I just want to be clear in that understanding. So what am I going to do more? I'll continue to the job I've been doing for the last 4 years. And I just want to make sure that if this is classified as a full-time position or it's classified as a part-time position. Because if it's classified as a part-time position, then possibility of me finding other employment as well will have a reduction on how I have been doing this job. But obviously, I don't want to get negative feedback from members of council saying you're not doing the job you're elected to do, but council has decided that that's a part-time position. So that's why I just want to manage the expectations. Councilor Lorrain.
Two things on that. The first one is, my understanding of every position at this table has been that it is a part-time position. I've never thought that either one of our positions were full-time. So I don't think us sitting here saying, well, the mayor's position is part-time as a statement of fact, I'm not wearing any issue if this council, if you decide to go get a job and you're not as accessible as you can and you're not doing the job that you've done for 4 years, that's on you, that's not on me, right? The position is what it is. Again, I think it should be full-time. If you put in the work as close to full-time as it is for the job that you're getting paid for today, and it changes tomorrow because you take a full-time job, that's on you. That's not on me. So don't put it on us, right? If we sit here and say that it's part-time, the job is part-time. It's what it's always been. So if you've been doing it as full-time, that's great. If you change what you do and the public see that there's a reduction in the service level at the mayor's position, that's not on council. That's on you. You've decided to take a full-time job, which is your prerogative, and I would disagree. If I would have ran for the mayor's position, I would have done the same thing. I would have kept my full-time job because it's not enough to feed the family at the salary that it's being paid at for the job that needs to be done. And so I truly believe it should be a full-time job. But if council decides that they don't want it to be a full-time position and the salary stays the same, and you decide to take a job and you don't do the same level of effort, that's not on me.
No, I understand that.
Well, I just want to make that clear.
No, if that was the case and I decided to take a full-time job somewhere else and the reduction, I understand the reduction, the level of service I'm providing, the reduction is my choice, but it is in consideration of what council decided they want. I'm not blaming council, I'm saying council made a decision, and because of that decision, I base my decisions. Conseiller Brisson.
Pour commencer, j'aimerais savoir, je sais que comme les grosses villes comme Ottawa, c'est une position full-time, mais même les conseillers, je pense que c'est full-time aussi, parce qu'il y a de quoi pour le staff. Mais je ne sais pas s'ils ont une certaine grosseur de ville ou village qui disent, c'est pour ça que je suis mal placé de dire, je sais qu'il y a bien d'ouvrages pour le maire, puis ça prend bien une dédication, puis même conseiller. Moi, j'ai la chance d'être semi-retired, c'est pour ça que je peux aller à bien des événements, puis que c'est très demandant. C'est juste que c'est pas aujourd'hui, ici, moi qui peux dire, je vais le changer. Faut que ça. J'aimerais savoir, est-ce qu'il y a une politique comme c'est là à la province, dire, OK, ben c'est à tant de population que ça devient un poste temps plein?
No, il y a pas de, there is no standard anywhere. There's a few articles written on the subject. There's comparables, but there's been, municipalities have a tendency to compare themselves to other municipalities and say, okay, well, that population, but to give you an example, we're 17,000 population, but we're in full growth mode. So there's a full demand, whereas you might have a population of 17,000 that's in decline, and the job isn't necessarily as much work required, right? as again, I'm just stating that I'm looking for what the expectations are. I've had conversations with residents and, you know, I'm just trying to get some feedback is,
C'est pour ça, finir mon point, c'est que je comprends que c'est bien d'ouvrage. Le chose, je serais pas paré à le faire changer comme c'est là, puis dire, OK, ben on met, comme on remontait à temps, décider comme c'est là à temps plein, puis tout ça, quand toutes les autres municipalités ne sont pas. Si ça vient comme de quelque chose comme de l'amour, quelque chose comme ça, que dire, OK, c'est à considérer pour, avec les salaires, puis que ça va avec les autres, ça, j'ai pas de problème. Fait que comme c'est là, c'est pour ça que je sais que c'est bien d'ouvrage, mais
so dans, toi, tu es
Moi,
préparé à dire que c'est un poste à temps partiel.
comme c'est là, oui, mais très demandant, mais tant que c'est pas changé à la province, que c'est une chose à
Ok.
temps partiel comme c'est là.
OK, juste clarifier parce que
Ouais.
ça serait jamais fait par un mot à la province. C'est pas un sujet qu'ils vont taper. Councillor Tanoski.
So can we just get into, perhaps discussing, because like everything else, we try to put a price on that, so maybe, that would help in understanding where you're going to. So I believe that the position is full-time, but what does that mean when I say that? Because if you've been providing us a service, full-time already, and at the rate that you're getting, you know, now I assume that this is going into wanting some sort of rate adjustment or something like that. So what does it mean? Is there an idea behind it? Is there, just so we can know exactly, so we can really make a decision on it?
Yeah, I'm not looking for anything specific. I just wanted to raise the question. If council was looking, you know, at being a full-time position, I guess we have a salary structure in the municipality that states this job is this position, is this value. Monsieur Leduc, I'm not sure if you have that, like where does the current rate of mayor fall if it's considered, you know, comparable to what other positions?
Well, like we normally do every year, we submit to council its final version, the salary grids at 2%. I have those if you are interested looking at those, but I have those available here right now.
Okay, so.
But normally we do have those for final adoption.
Okay, so.
I can share them with you.
Sure. Just, I believe my salary is 40,000 with the change, Monsieur Godet?
Parce que le point, ça serait savoir quel montant aussi, ça serait comme justement comme conseiller Tarnowski, est-ce qu'elle parle d'une job de. C'est pas de mettre en plein ou quoi. La décision de chose, c'est de savoir c'est un salaire de 42 000 ou c'est un salaire de 125 000. Non, mais.
Ben clair, je monte pas pour
Non,
125 000.
non, mais c'est pour ça. C'est bon à savoir.
Mais
Ça
je
fait une
pense-
différence entre 60 000 et 120 000 aussi.
Oui, définitivement. Mais je pense aussi la question c'est moving forward. You know, we heard from Councillor Alain who said one of the reasons he didn't apply for the job is because, you know, feed the family, so forth. I mean, when we talk at elections going down the road, in past, if we look at all the past mayors, essentially it's been people who are retired. You know, who have a pension coming in, or people like myself or Conseiller Lorrain on council where we're in a position where, you know, we work for ourselves, or, you know, we have that availability. So it's also what kind of people are you attracting to apply for the job when it's election time? So that I think is something we have to consider as well. But, okay, so what did we say, Monsieur Leduc?
Le salaire du maire right now it's at 37.5. That's if it's increased at 2%.
No, there's, with the adjustment though, it went up,
1/3.
the 1/3 adjustment went up to 42, did it not?
Yeah.
That's what I had read.
Something there like that. Is this in here? No, our salaries, no.
Le salaire proposé.
Monsieur.
In the meantime, you know, council members, I work closely with council, even more closely with the mayor. I think it's a two-level debate here, whereas I think we could jog down on paper what are the expectations of the position. That would be one thing. Same thing for a council member, same thing for the mayor. So whoever's deciding to run has an idea as to what is expected. But on the flip side, though, is also the ability or the willingness of the individual occupying the position to deliver on that. Because I could have, let's say we would status this position as a full-time, and the next person comes in only wants to put in the effort as part-time. So there could be some formula where you say, this is the expectation, if you can't meet this, you only can meet it half, and then you're getting a different salary rate because you have a regular job, you're gonna be here full-time, so therefore there'd be a salary difference. So it could be a factor of two things, one, the expectations, and one of the ability or willingness of the individual sitting in the chair to say, I'm willing to put in 40 hours or 35 or whatever, or I can't put in more than 20 because I have a full-time job which I'm working at. So it'd be fair for the community to say, okay, well, we know he's working full-time, he's only there part-time, he should be getting paid part-time. But we should have both there set up to say, well, who's occupying the chair and what's his willingness to do the work. So for me, I work closely with the mayor and everybody in council, but I know Mr. Doug's putting all the work and the studying and the work he's been doing. It's all appreciated by us. But I'm not too sure that, but some other person comes in that does the same thing. So I'd like to have something in place where the community would see a difference in salaries for somebody who's here and commits, and somebody who can only be here part-time. That's what I think.
What's that, Larry?
For me, if my opinion is if we go the route of making the position full-time or head that way for the next election, that it's a full-time position, that going forward it's a full-time position. I mean, I don't think we can revert back to it being a part-time, regardless of the person who's doing it. And I think it needs to be stated that way, that the position is full-time. I think if somebody applies for the position of mayor in Ottawa, as an example, I think it comes with the expectation that, well, that's your job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if we make the position full-time, well then, that's your job. There's no expectation that you're out there doing another full-time job. You want a part-time job on top of that, then that's your prerogative, but your main priority is the township, and you do need to put in time. And I think it'd be up to council at that point in time to ensure that the mayor is keeping up with the expectations of the position. If he's not, or he or she is not fulfilling the expectations, I think at that point there could be some accountability. Again, following the municipal act, what can you hold them accountable for? Well, in 4 years, that person would then be accountable to the public. And did they fulfill the job as a full-time mayor? Yes or no? And if they did, then chances are they'll get reelected. If they don't, then I'm sure that the people on council at the time and everybody else will be going at them hard and during their campaigns and whatnot. So, you live by your record, you die by your record, and for me, if we go around and make it a full-time position, it's a full-time position going forward. It's not a part-time if you only want to do it part-time, and full-time if you want to do it full-time.
Mr. Leduc?
Just to confirm the amount, Mr. Mayor, c'est 41,600.
That's the current.
That's the current.
That would be a 219 rate as proposed at 2%.
Plus 15 000 parce que tu tombes avec le comté.
20 000.
Au niveau des comtés unis, it's $20,000.
Okay.
Because I'm in the position of mayor,
Oh,
yes, I get that $20,000, but that $20,000 is paid for the job I do at the United Counties.
Mais ça fait quand même ton salaire de général. Fait que quand on considère le salaire, que ce soit une position full-time ou part-time, il faut considérer qu'automatiquement ça vient avec. Fait que c'est comme ça vient
Oui,
avec
mais
le
c'est
chose.
une job séparée de ça. It's tied into, but you're getting paid to be at the county table by the counties for the job you're doing at the county level.
Fait que c'est 20 000 que t'as.
But yes, it automatically comes because you're in the position of mayor. Want to say that?
So I'll make this comment, and we talked about it yesterday, is if your standard work week for a full-time position is 40 hours or 35 hours, whatever that is, and you're at the county for the county meetings, what, every Wednesday, for the full day kind of thing?
It's about usually on
Meeting and then
average.
committees?
Yeah, usually about 4 hours every 2 weeks, 4 or 5 hours every 2 weeks.
Okay, so for those weeks, you're not technically in the office here,
Right.
and that's why you're being paid your 20,000 there, so
It's
it
comparable.
ties in, you're not here available for those hours because you're working there, and that's why you're getting the extra, so, you know, we do still have to take into account that for your 40-hour work week, or your 35-hour work week, there are times where you're gonna be outside of the area, not necessarily here, doing the job, so that's why you get paid the extra 20,000. So, you know, and I'm not in any way sitting here saying, well, for 61,000, that's a full-time position and you're good. I still think there would need to be an adjustment if we went to full-time, because I don't think that that's a reasonable salary,
Right.
okay? But we need to count that in, because that is part of the work week that we're talking about.
Yes, that's on the assumption that the mayor's role is only 9 to 5, and he's not doing any other hours on nights or weekends.
As we all are.
Right,
Right?
right. Want to say you're trying to ask?
So just a clarification again, so at the counties, you only have that position because you're a mayor?
Because I'm in there.
Okay, and then, so it's all mayors that are there?
It's all mayors, correct.
So part of the job of mayor is to be at the counties?
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially, it's about the same time commitment as a counselor here, and so you're being paid at that rate. Roughly what the counselors are making here is what my representation over there is.
And the warden gets a little bump for that year that he's working.
Thank you. So what are we going to?
So 41.6, that's what I'm making?
If you like.
Wait,
And for the discussion purposes, 21.7 for councilors.
21.7 for counselors. And so, just looking at the salary grid, what am I comparable to here? So, here, Conseil Brisson?
C'est juste que ma question aussi, si on dit que c'est une job à temps plein, ça voudrait dire que, par exemple, que c'est un job à 40 heures semaine et plus, comme à 40 heures semaine, cette chose. Est-ce que ça l'est toutes ces heures-là dedans? Je sais que ça en est plusieurs. Fait que est-ce que ça fait une différence là, pour surtout la discussion-là, que ça soit full-time ou non? Parce que là, je pense pas que ça soit vraiment justifiable de dire que à chaque jour, t'as 40 heures semaine à passer pour la chose. C'est pas justifiable. Est-ce qu'on devrait leur augmenter le salaire? Ça peut être une discussion dedans, oui. Mais c'est pour ça que ça revient comme c'est là, on a dit 60 000, mais c'est pas, c'est pas tout à fait le 40 heures semaine que tu m'as. C'est pas.
Je pense que je fais 20 plus que 40 heures par semaine, mais ça, c'est un autre histoire. Conseiller Lorrain?
So, from a budgetary discussion right now, are we looking to add any additional revenue or expense? Or is this a discussion we can have at another time in terms of classification of the position? Right? I mean, just, if we're gonna add expense to the budget today for this, then let's talk about that. If we're not, if that's not a discussion, then let's discuss the increase of the change in the position at another time.
Okay.
So do we
Is there
ask for a raise or not?
Yeah,
Is
so
that your question, right?
I think,
Councillor Janowski?
I think what Councillor Lorraine is saying makes a lot of sense, in the sense that, what are we talking about here? It's like everything else, it comes down to dollars and cents.
Yep.
So what are the dollars and cents? Obviously, if we're going down this path, it's because there's been some thought into the process. So let's put a number to it. What does that mean?
Okay. So the reason I was asking, because if council was saying that it was a part-time position, then I would say then no, it doesn't require a raise, if you will, or an increase. That's why I was asking for clarification. Now, if we determine that it is considered a full-time position, then I think there should be an increase. That's up to council to decide what kind of increase we want to see. I'm not saying, one big shot. It could be incremental. It depends as well as where do we want to be in 4 years' time when we're saying that it's a full-time position and the mayor should be at that point in time. So I'm just looking for direction from members of council. Councilor Associate?
Do we have a grid of what other mayors are making in other municipalities of similar size?
Mr. Leduc?
We did at one point, I don't have it today with me, I can ask Debbie, I think we could have had that done maybe a year and a half, 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
it was with the.
With the Hay Group study, we had done.
I could ask that question.
Conseiller
I
Lorrain?
think the one thing that we learned, that we were told in that study at that time, is that when we did the P60 across the board, that council needed to be increased because we were way below, and that the mayor's position, based on everything else, was over P60 at the time. Now, I don't think there was a distinction between a part-time and a full-time. I think it was strictly what the mayors were making across the board. So,
I think as well, one item to consider, we'd have to look into the history of, but I think the salary of mayor has stayed constant for quite a period of time. So if you look at the board, like Gaston Patnaud 15, 20 years ago would have been making, approximately around the same thing. There hasn't been, the mayor's position has stayed constant, hasn't seen an increase in time. Yeah?
C'est ça, c'est pas le chiffre que tu veux.
Bah, moi, ça, je demande au conseil. Si les membres du conseil disent qu'ils sont prêts à regarder que ce soit un test, considérer un poste à temps plein, à quel niveau qu'on veut mettre, je regarde pour les membres du conseil for feedback.
Moi, là, je ne pas en plein parce que toutes les autres municipalités ne l'ont pas non plus. Fait que de le raiser un peu, je sais que comme il disait, le Hay Group, on était déjà un peu plus haut, mais on n'était pas le plus haut de la région. De l'augmenter d'une coupe comme un petit peu, oui, mais pas de le mettre à temps plein.
So, toi, tu considères le poste temps partiel. Okay. Conseiller Lorrain?
my opinion is the position should be full-time. I'm not gonna throw a number out, but I think the position should be full-time. And I think we should come back with, you should work with administration and come back with a number that you think that the position should be based on information, and council can vote on it at that point in time. I think it should be a full-time position. If it stays as a part-time position, I have no interest in making any salary adjustments.
Okay. Councilor Associate, you consider full-time, part-time?
Full-time, I agree with Councilor Laurent.
Okay. Councilor Kudowski, you consider full-time, part-time?
Full-time, and I agree with Councilor Lorraine in terms of having a recommendation with some facts and numbers behind it rather than just throwing stuff out there.
So, Monsieur Leduc, I'm not sure what kind of facts or numbers you're looking for. So I guess it, comparables to what though? If we're
Full-time positions, I don't care.
Okay, so we're looking for full-time positions.
I'm not gonna sit here and suggest that we compare the positions of everyone else in the counties, because at that point in time, everyone's considered a part-time mayor. So it makes no sense that you're gonna compare the salaries. Let's start comparing some of the salaries of the mid-level, like, you know, I'm gonna throw Port Colborne out there as an example. I think they're about 21,000 people now. They were 17 when I was growing up. I believe their mayor is full-time, so that might be one to look at as well. Welland's 45,000, their mayor is full-time as well. So let's start looking at stuff like that and see, because we're going that way. And like I said, to me, the mayor needs to be available to go places and get things done, you know, be a mover and shaker, and not just be the figurehead and not just be the person that just comes and sits down at the table. So that's what I would say. I'm not gonna sit here and throw a number out. I'm telling you that right now.
Non, c'est
So-
bon, c'est bon. Monsieur Leduc, si on peut faire, l'administration peut faire des recherches. Conseiller Brissard, même conseiller Laurent.
Non, je supporte parfaitement ce que le conseiller Laurent dit, que oui, c'est très demandant, mais justement de savoir un peu, que ce soit Coburn, que ce soit d'autres municipalités ailleurs, ceux qui ont position temps plein, c'est quoi que l'attente, tout ça. Peut-être aussi que si on avait un peu de time frame, comme d'heures que tu fais vraiment ici, que tu as besoin d'être ici, ça serait une bonne chose de savoir aussi. Est-ce que tu parles que tu es obligé d'être ici 30 heures semaine, 40 heures semaine, 50 heures semaine? Ça, c'est...
Est-ce que je suis obligé d'être ici? Non, évidemment, si le poste c'est en partiel, je suis pas obligé d'être ici
Non,
du tout. Je peux rentrer, tu sais, dans le passé, we had mayors that came in, you know, essentially twice a month and popped in maybe once a week, you know, if that's the role we want, but Councillor Tomasky.
So I think we kind of gave direction that we want, that like we're seeing it as a full-time position. I think that Monsieur Leduc, if you can go back and get us some numbers based on some other comparables that make sense with the context of what we're talking about, I think I'd be happy with that. And then the only other part that I would like to add, because of the nature of the position being an elected position, if we put a salary and a salary grid or whatever to that, where is the process of evaluation? Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourdon, everybody here who is full-time has an evaluation process. As an elected member, yes, every 4 years the electorate will speak. But in the meantime, is there anything, you know, from a progression point of view that we can do maybe as councillors, you know, to make the mayor accountable in that sense for their, I don't know if that's something that would be done. When you're investigating, I guess the other municipalities that are in our size that have full-time mayors, just to look at that as well. Thank you.
Councillor Laurent?
The one thing that I think we also need to understand, and maybe it's a good thing to do, to look at the last 10 years maybe, is, because I know you haven't been in the role in 10 years, or maybe even 12 years to go back. What are the per diems as well that the mayors over that period of time have incurred? Because whether or not we go full-time, if you're being paid to be on the clock, if you will, then do you get per diems?
Right.
Right? So what is that number? What has it been historically? And will that factor in, you know, if I say, you know, I'm not gonna throw the number, but if I say the number is X plus per diems, or is that number Y without per diems? Right? Like, what does that look like? So I think that's a key point. I'm not gonna touch kilometers, because I still think everyone who uses their own card deserves their mileage and stuff. But that's part of the remuneration factor, and I wanna make sure that we talk about that from a mayor's position,
Yeah, definitely.
if we're going full-time.
Okay. Monsieur Leduc?
I take a note of these suggestions, and I'm okay with that. Food for thought regarding the question about budget. I go back to the first year of the last term of council. In the first budget, we raised, I think, salaries for councillors from 15 to 18.3. So times 3 or times 4, that was about 13,500. So this is what we did for council last time, the last round of the term of council, and the mayor didn't get, I don't think, a change at that time. So maybe this is why this is coming up now. It's been evolving. There's been an adjustment there, and not the mayor's chair. So maybe this is time for that. So for numbers' sake, we could put a number there. This is the range that the council was comfortable last time to put in, and nobody really out there in the community were upset about. So maybe a similar number could be put in the budget that reflects the same we did for council members. So I'm just throwing that, my opinion there as far as cost.
Okay. Councillor Sophie?
Can that be brought back at the next meeting, like an idea? Because like I don't know what number to throw out there, to be honest.
Yeah,
We'll
certainly.
come back with a recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from the budget perspective, when we come back on February 19th, we're having a final number. So if you told me today, well, let's put in 10,000, for example, in this budget so that we can play around, and if the studies come back and justify it, like you did for OMERS, you put aside $12,000 for OMERS, then in the budget, and then council decided not to join. So therefore, that money was never spent. So it could be the same thing here, we put some money on the table and do the study and come back with a report to council and say, does it change or not?
Conseiller Buisson, conseiller Tenassi.
Je sais que la dernière fois, quand que, pour les conseillers, que ça va monter, puis pas le maire, parce que là, on s'était fié sur le study de Hay Group. C'était comme ça que, là, on avait dit qu'il était venu avec ça, vu que c'était la chose. Si on décide de remettre comme une coupe de 1000, là, je suis sûr que c'est plus que ça qu'ils rechargent. Ça, n'est pas de problème. Mais dire, on va remettre juste 1000 parce qu'il avait fait pour les conseillers, c'est qu'on s'était justifié l'autre fois avec le Hay Group.
Councillor Tenassi?
Je cherche juste à comprendre, M. Leduc, ce que vous proposez, juste pour m'assurer que je comprends.
Oui.
C'est que l'idée, c'est de mettre un certain montant de côté, juste pour le processus de l'administration de continuer à préparer, d'avancer au niveau du budget. Comme ça, si mettons, vous nous retournez avec un montant de, je sais pas, 20 000 $, on peut dire qu'on a mis un certain nombre de montants de côté. Peut-être on va faire échéancier, peut-être c'est pas le bon, mais on va le faire monter comme ça, graduellement, sans affecter, c'est comme vous avez dit 13 000 là, tantôt. Fait que ça serait de le monter on steps over the next few years to get it to a certain level or something? Is that what you're thinking?
Partly, but I was saying to council, if last time council was not afraid to make an increase of $13,000 and nobody criticized that, and the mayor was not touched on that, can it be this term that where we correct salaries mayor by at least $13,000 and put that money in the budget right now and come up with a report and come up with the Hay Group studies also? So if ever you decide to go back retroactively to January 1, well, you ever had the money in the budget to correct that. That's what I'm saying. Put a provision there, not saying to the mayor today, yes, you're going for an increase, certainly we will do all the studying, but at least the money will be put there. So if the reports come in and council wants to go there, the money is there. If not, we'll put that into a reserve for next year adjustments.
Conseiller Lorrain?
More than willing to accept that, as long as we can keep the budget at 2%. If you can find the 10 or 15,000, whatever the number is, as a potential landing spot if we need it, then great. It's keeping under the same budget structure that we've been dealing with. And I think we've shown a few things that need to be relooked at anyway. Moving a few numbers around, and if we can do that and find the between $10,000 and $15,000 to set aside in case council decides to increase the mayor's position, then I have no problem with that.
On est correct? Parfait.
Not now.
Il était 13 000. Pas 13 000.
OK. Prochain sur la liste, c'était conseiller Brisson. Premier thème, c'était déterminer mon temps pour achever la décision avant la bibliothèque Embrun. Je pense que je vais essayer de. La bibliothèque d'Embrun, c'est quelque chose que l'administration travaille dessus. Y a-t-il quelque chose que tu veux ajouter là-dessus?
Ben, moi, c'était juste faire sûr que si jamais qu'on décidait qu'il y avait une possibilité qu'il y ait un déménagement cette année, qu'on avait l'argent disponible. Pas que ça se va se faire, mais que si ça vient, qu'il y avait une possibilité qu'on puisse avoir l'argent disponible pour ça.
Monsieur Leduc?
On l'a pas mis dans le budget, mais vous avez vu aujourd'hui, par rapport à l'endettement, le projet de la bibliothèque jusqu'à 3 millions. Sans aller plus loin publiquement, on a des options à regarder. Ça veut dire qu'on pourrait venir avec un rapport séparé au conseil avec une recommandation de faire un emprunt pour quelconque projet, que ce soit de $0 jusqu'à 3 millions. Si on trouve l'emplacement, on est prêt à faire une décision il y aura un rapport au conseil, puis on fera un ajout au budget de cette façon-là.
Deuxième considération pour augmenter les fonds d'infrastructure pour les chemins.
On a parlé de faire
On a augmenté
avec la grande des Côtes-Unis, tout ça.
OK. Chemin adressé, route 200. Redresser certaines courbes successives pour faciliter la désignation du chemin pour camions. Loop Hamilton, de piste, on avait parlé un petit peu. Burden, partenariat avec Ottawa, puis McDonald à Paris, puis le pont Wade. So, on sait que le pont Wade est dans le budget. On sait que McDonald, on a eu des discussions. Route 200, y a-tu quelque chose que tu veux spécifiquement voir dans le budget ici?
Non, pas dans ce budget ici, ça serait peut-être dans le mettre comme à considérer dans les choses à venir. C'est un chemin que j'aimerais voir dans les prochaines années. Là.
OK.
Mais je sais qu'il y a bien de l'argent là-dedans.
OK. Montant 4, montant d'argent pour planter des arbres, montant d'argent pour couper des arbres. Est-ce possible de planter des arbres sur le dépotoir, montant pour niveler, pour faciliter la plantation? Madame Victor, à ton
Merci,
tour.
M. le maire. Il y a déjà un montant d'argent alloué à toutes les années maintenant. Cette année, c'est de 28 600 Pour ce qui est du dépotoir, je pense que M. Bourgon a déjà des montants aussi alloués.
Monsieur Bourgon?
Pour complémenter pour le dépotoir, j'ai déjà rencontré le ministère de l'Environnement ainsi que South Nation. Donc, cette année, South Nation vont pousser un peu plus à faire les analyses de sol, etc., pour faire des recommandations au type d'arbre, pour venir avec une recommandation là, pour 2020.
Ça serait juste faire sûr aussi que ça ne fasse pas comme un peu la dernière fois, s'il y a du niveling à faire pour le drainage, que ça soit fait avant de planter les arbres.
C'est pour ça que c'est fait cette année, parce que tous les travaux sont complétés pour le dépotoir.
OK. Parfait. Numéro 5, nouveau trottoir du côté ouest sur Saint-Augustin jusqu'à la Madeleine. Ça, on a discuté. C'est pas dans le budget cette année. Monsieur Leduc?
Je pense qu'hier, on a pris la note de l'ajouter dans la liste
Des potentiels.
des futurs trottoirs.
OK. 6, déterminer la possibilité que certains comités puissent avoir un petit budget pour transport. So, c'est-tu quelque chose que tu veux inclure dans le budget?
Je sais que ça avait été approché par différents comités qu'il y ait une possibilité que s'il y avait des dépenses extraordinaires pour le comité, que ça veut dire qu'avant, il y avait un budget, que là, qu'ils n'ont pas.
Mais je pense, tu regardes-tu pour comme payer le kilométrage, c'est ça?
Quand j'ai donné l'exemple du transport, c'était comme pour ceux qui seraient sur le Rec Center, s'ils décident d'aller voir des visites, ben, qu'il y ait de quoi louer pour pouvoir.
Monsieur Leduc.
We don't have a rec center committee right now.
No, but
Monsieur
at
Leduc?
that time we had.
Yeah. In the council's budget, I put in an amount there that every year we put in $5,000 so that if any one of us has to go to make some visits to Toronto and elsewhere, there's extra money because council's decided to do that. So if ever council is ready to accept recommendations from a committee to say we need to visit 1, 2, 3, or 4 sites, there is $5,000 there that could be accessed for the committee as needed.
C'est
So
parfait.
I don't think anything else to be added.
OK. Numéro 7, projet de prolonger la piste cyclable sur Notre-Dame du rond-point jusqu'à la lumière de l'Indépendant. Ça, c'est pas sur le
Non,
budget.
c'est pas jusqu'à la minute de l'indépendant.
Ah, toi, tu voulais Sainte-Marie, c'est ça?
Non, Saint-André.
Saint-André?
Oui, parce que comme c'est là, c'est bien dur de sortir de Saint-André, que s'ils remettaient une lumière là, que c'est pas si loin que ça, que faire. Parce qu'on parlait de leur pousser de à peu près 400 mètres, quelque chose comme ça, du rond-point, que là, ça leur poussait juste un petit peu plus, puis que ça faisait safe à passer s'il y avait une lumière. Mais ça, c'est avec les Comtés-Unis aussi, là.
Oui. J'ai demandé aux Comtés-Unis de M. Bouchard de regarder le point Saint-André, voir c'est quoi les possibilités là. So, il va y avoir des discussions là-dessus, mais pas dans ce budget.
Puis là, c'est ça qui vient en dessous.
And St. Andre's right here at the
Yeah.
Giant
Giant
Tiger.
Tiger.
You want street lights there?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Mhm. To help cross over.
So, item 8,
C'est ça.
installation de feux de circulation, ça fait partie de la même discussion. 9, installation de panneaux d'affichage sur la piste récréative pour promotion et proximité des commerces. Ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on envisageait?
C'était dans la communication.
Monsieur Leduc?
C'est la communication, c'est un peu un genre de autofinancé. Si on a de la publicité, il y a des panneaux, il y a kind of self-fund those
Ça peut
sites.
partir.
Ouais.
Mais il n'y a pas nécessairement...
So there is also a small budget for marketing and advertising. It could be taken from there. There might be some money left over once we do the intersections of every crossings. We have like $50,000 there.
So
If
there's
ever,
flexibility in
there
the
might be
budget.
some money there left over. I'm not saying there is, but there might be some. So there could be some source of funding to get these things looked at this year.
So
I'm not
ça, c'est
saying we
quelque
will,
chose-
but I'm sure that we could look at it.
Ouais, so ça, c'est quelque chose que l'administration va regarder la possibilité. Puis s'il faut amener un rapport back au conseil, mais...
Mhm.
OK. 10, le piste 11, budget pour organiser un souper dans le noir pour le comité d'accessibilité. Il n'y a pas de budget cette année, M. Leduc? Non. C'est quelque chose que tu voulais inclure dans le budget cette année?
Ben, j'aurais aimé avoir un peu, c'était une idée qu'on avait amenée avec le chose d'accessibilité que
Alors, qu'est-ce que je recommanderais, c'est que le comité d'accessibilité fait une recommandation au conseil avec des chiffres qu'il aimerait voir, puis après ça, le conseil peut avoir la discussion à ce point-là.
Mais là, c'est ça. Est-ce qu'il y a de l'argent? Y a-t-il un compte pour être disponible? Puis à combien qu'on peut s'attendre à demander? Est-ce que ça serait pour sensibiliser, que ça serait l'idée d'avoir les membres du conseil, le membre du staff, et un peu d'autres choses, pour la chose de sensibilisation?
Conseiller Lorrain?
First question I have is, does the committee get any money? I know they used to annually.
Pour les payes?
No.
Non.
Monsieur Godin?
Yes, so there is and that's what I was going to kind of come and say, there is a budget of $1,000 for this committee.
Okay.
So it could be used from that.
And then on top of that, we all have discretionary budgets as well. If that could be tapped into if needed as well. Make a recommendation. You know, if $1,000 is, if you need more than $1,000 for this, for this dinner thing, you can always ask for 500 out of yours. You can ask for each member to give you $100 out of their discretionary budget. I mean, there's different ways. So.
And it's often, you know, we've seen this similar events where it's a fundraiser, right? So it could be a fundraising where people are actually buying tickets to help raise funds for accessibility. OK. 12, budget entre 1000 et 500 pour organiser 2 activités, lunch and learn, un pour des associations et groupes sociaux et un pour les commerces. Je pense qu'on fait déjà des lunch and learn pour les commerces. Pour les groupes sociaux, c'est tout le temps quelque chose qu'on peut regarder à faire. Monsieur Leduc, à travers peut-être communication ou we have our communications is community development as well.
Yeah, there's something we're working on regarding groups, associations. Like I think we discussed that last meeting or a few meetings ago at council. So I took note to look at this. We're not ready for that, I think, right now, but it could be something to be incorporated into next budget.
OK. À vérifier le montant en réserve, ben ça, c'est confirmé qu'il n'y a plus de réserve là-dessus. Tournoi de golf, on a parlé. Question nécessairement du financement, ça on l'a déjà fait. Now we go to Councilor Lorrain. See that the rec complex is under construction by the end of term of council. I think there's more discussions to have on that, but council administration is definitely working on that. Looking to have a specific reserve created for the new rec complex.
And we talked about that 150,000, which is about 1.25% of the budget.
Correct.
So that's been done.
Installation minor baseball fields on the rec complex site.
Yeah. So I talked about that last year about getting Let's be clear so there's no confusion in the future. The softball fields that we have today are softball fields and shouldn't be anything other than softball fields. They are utilized. I like the fact that we're changing the dugouts this year. The work started in the fall. Well, there's still work. I think there's still tops and stuff to be put on and whatnot in the spring, which is great because they were all coming out. That's great. However, kids should not be playing baseball on gravel. So what I'm talking about is actual minor baseball fields to be built, and I don't think there should be any other place to put them than on a site that we're putting all of our recreation on now, which is, you know, obviously we need a full site plan now that we own the extra land. What does that look like now versus what it looked like before? So now you got the sports dome. If we put a complex, whether it's 3 rinks, whether it's a pool, like how big a place are we gonna need? Now, where can we start putting additional things, whether it's a soccer field, whether it's a track, whether it's baseball diamonds?
For budget purposes, you're not looking to put it in the budget this year?
No, I'm not looking to add anything in this year. I would have loved to have it, but right now I don't think it's feasible. But I think it is feasible in the future, and whether or not it comes before the complex or after or in conjunction with, I think it's something that we definitely need to look at. Minor baseball in this area is increasing, and I think with the advent of the fields, we'll even make it even bigger. You know, you make one you know, if you get it, to me, you make 3 diamonds, but at least you can have tournaments and stuff that are gonna come in, which accentuates the economic development of the area. You build one that's a good size, and the other 2 are just normal size. We're not necessarily huge seating, but you put seating around one, so you have your, you know, your championships and your major events and stuff like that. That's where it makes a lot of sense. I can show you examples of fields in the area. There's many, and I understand we have one at Richelieu Park, but that's a major field. So there's a difference between minor and major. That's the major field. That's for junior and senior ball, but I'm talking more the minor ball, dirt and grass fields is what I'm talking about. Kids need to learn how to play baseball properly, and sliding on gravel doesn't work.
So as we have more discussions about the rec complex area, that'll come
Yes.
up. Same thing with soccer fields, I assume?
Yeah, there's another thing I wanted to bring up as well, and I'm hoping that we can look at it. I don't think it has a budgetary effect, but since we're talking about things, I'd like to bring it up here. How do we get the large trucks out of the downtown core in Russell? Redesignation of truck routes or something, but it makes no sense. It makes no sense when we have routes 100 and 200 and Edie Road and all and all those other routes to route a big truck past 5 schools and then through the downtown core. Because they're designated as truck routes and the other ones aren't. I mean, if we're gonna start repaving stuff, let's build it properly and redesignate. I mean, we've got a company that sits right on Route 100, and they gotta go right through the downtown core to go down Craig to come back down Boundary. Well, why not go right down one of the 2 routes? They're not allowed to.
Mr. Bourgon?
They could use North Russell Road, which is a truck route. So for that specific company, they don't need to go through the downtown.
Russell Road, what's Russell Road?
North
North
Russell.
Concession?
Concession, like.
Yes, but if they're going south,
Oh yeah, they're going south.
right? If they're going south, it makes no sense to bring them all the way through the school zones when they can just go right out the road and off. That's, you know, and to be honest, that is probably what they're doing. You know, and they get caught, they take the fine, they move on. I mean, to me, it makes no sense to bring them through truck roads, or through the school zones.
So that would be in conjunction with the United Counties to work on, to decide. It'll be first to evaluate. The administration will have to look at something.
Well, they're all our routes though.
Hey?
They're not the county route, it's all our routes.
No,
Route
no, but I
100's
mean-
ours, 200's ours, North
But-
Russell's ours.
No, but I'm talking, you're saying going down through the downtown core.
Oh, yeah,
That's a county road.
yes, that area is the county roads.
Right, so there'll have to be discussion with county roads to move forward. So what we can do is, administration can bring back something to council. Council will have to make that decision if that's the way we wanna go, and propose something to United Counties and see if if they agree with, what council is requesting. Madame Bordeaux?
Isn't all county roads truck routes?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
The county would have to agree to make them no truck routes. That's why I'm saying there has to be discussion with
are
the
you
counties.
making county roads no truck routes?
Those certain areas.
Concession where they turn
just out of the downtown core,
Yeah, but
right?
just
Which
to-
means we have to then reallocate around the downtown core in our areas to allow them to be truck routes, and say the downtown core is no longer a truck route for, to get the counties to agree to that piece. And to be honest, this is coming from the trucking community as much as it is from the residents who don't wanna see trucks going in front of the schools.
Just to be clear, I know there have been traffic counts at county levels. Monsieur Bourgon, if you can remind me, I think the percentage is extremely small.
Really low, yeah.
Really low.
We could pull out the stats, but the county gave us, and I believe it's around 1%, if it's not lower than 1% of the traffic. That's actually trucks.
So it should be no problem with them saying
And
no
which
truck route.
most of them needs to go in town.
Right, if there's a restaurant that's in that area, we'll say Russell Restaurant, if it's a big truck that has to go deliver. No truck route means they have to go around if they have no specific reason to be there. However, if they do have a specific reason to be there, and I think.
Let's look dump trucks as an example, right? The dump truck doesn't necessarily have to go through the downtown core if they can go around.
But again, there's construction, a lot of construction in Russell currently. That's why there's a lot of dump trucks going back and forth. But that's definitely something that administration can look at. Councillor Saucier, installation dog waste receptacles at the entrances on the trail. Is that something we're currently looking at? Yeah. Okay, Emblem train station, there's money put aside in the budget for that. There's rural promotion program, the
Wait,
flags.
Can I clarify that, because that's not what I meant.
Okay,
So what I was proposing was, and there are poles in the village of Russell, because when the fire department had their 100, they used those little flag poles. So what I was proposing was all the different community groups be profiled, and they could even sponsor their own flag. So for instance, RAPA, the Optimists, the Lions, all the different community groups. So when a prospective person, buyer comes into the village, they go, oh, they've got an Optimist Club here, or they got the King Club. And so each of our community groups would have their own flag. The Historical Society, the Horticultural Society celebrating 100 years this year, they could purchase something really attractive. And I'll use Chrysler as an example, actually families sponsored, and the family names went on. So this is more for community
so
groups.
this, would you be looking to replace the entrance signs of the municipalities where it's those squares where all the organizations are by
No.
having flags?
No, not necessarily. I just thought it would be attractive to have these flags in the village. And I've actually approached the King Club and some of them, and they liked the idea, and they said it would,
So-
profile our community groups.
Okay, so from a budget perspective, this seems to be, the organization would sponsor, so it'd be essentially a cost recovery program. So
Well, there might be some cost, but I'm trying to, get around too much of a cost, and I don't even know how much one of those flags would cost. So it was just an idea I had. I thought more of a partnership, maybe.
Okay.
Um,
see anybody say?
Well, the way I see it, like in Chrysler, if you go during the summer, they have it for the families.
They have it all year. They're up all year.
Or up here, it's the family that are here,
Yeah.
you're suggesting, and.
Community groups.
Yeah.
And we also had in the branding exercise, there's flags and stuff, so there might be a partnership for the poles to be installed through that program,
Mhm.
and the flags can be
And
changed every
there
now and
are the poles, like you say, in the village of Russell. There aren't in Almdra, I don't believe, but because when the fire department had their 100, they use those
Okay,
poles.
so that's a project that we can definitely
Yeah.
look into. Historical signs along the trail about, i.e. Duncanville and McDougall Parks.
Well, that was just sort of the thing that we're working
Working
on
on.
with the
Mr.
plaques.
Budzik?
Yeah, so they said that there was about 10 plaques to be installed anywhere in the township, so
Yeah.
if those are the ones selected, they would be there.
But could I just say, actually, my list was really scaled down. And there was just one that was really, really important to me was.
Is it for the budget?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
Jonathan Pitt,
Okay.
was
Well-
having something, again, like we were saying, possibly we talked about the disability playground, and even having it named in his honor, like,
Yeah.
Tina's possibly moving, and I just thought it would be really nice to have something sooner than later.
We currently have a grant application that we're waiting for a response. Madame Guital?
Yes, we had made 2 applications for accessibility. One for a small park, which we were denied. We're still waiting for an answer for the big one, for the big park, and that was the park that I would have liked to name after Jonathan. But we haven't had any reply yet, so.
Or even a street name or something. And of course, the Emblem Library is a priority for me. And the one other thing was, what wasn't on here, which should never be missing for me, is increasing our tree canopy. And because we're mandated by March 1st by the province to increase our tree canopy. And I want to make sure that we work on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tarnowski, library facility, we're okay, we've had that discussion and we're moving forward. Pool facility, that obviously part of the rec complex, I think that's moving forward as well. Councillor Tarnowski?
So just to confirm, one of the aspects that I still haven't seen for the pool facility is the fiscal aspect to it, whether it's feasible to do it or not. So a lot of people want it, I definitely want it, but I want to be sure that moving forward that it's sustainable financially.
Okay. So, Monsieur Leduc, y a-tu quelque chose dans le budget pour ça du tout?
No, that would be addressed when we bring options to council, what kind of projects could be looked at. And again, from consulting firms doing that kind of review for us, it would be presented to council
So it would be
saying,
part of
option 1, 2, 3, and 4, and feasibility of option A, B, and C. So you'd be seeing that.
Okay. And you had another point, should the public members sitting on all committees be remunerated?
Yeah, I really don't like the way that's written because I'm not trying to get people paid here. Again, my point was on that to provide a complimentary walking pass at the Dome as just a form of recognition. So remunerated, that's numbers. And
Yeah, I think we had talked about that at one meeting, and we were looking at seeing about when we bring back the remuneration bylaw, if that would be included. Was that where the discussion went? If I
yeah, I
remember,
think
Mr.
so.
Dizzy?
Yes, it's part of the last time discussion. You asked us to bring a report. We have some different views on the subject, obviously.
Yeah.
So we'll bring a report to council, and council can just give us direction when we get the report.
Okay, perfect. I'll say that.
Yeah, the only thing about the remuneration bylaw, that's for council, right? And I don't think you're talking about remunerating council or giving us a free walking pass, so I think it'd be outside of the remuneration bylaw.
Mr. Leduc?
Right now, it's the same bylaw. We may be to a point now that we have too many things for council, and so maybe separating the 2 bylaws, it could be one of those things, but right now it is included.
Is it included?
Yeah, some committee remunerations are there.
Okay, but this would not necessarily, if you're talking about walking passes, doesn't necessarily have a budget implication at this point in time. Okay.
Well,
Since we're talking,
well, we, Mr. Mayor, we feel we do, there's a lost revenue, so it's coming either from free, like we give out free ice times, then it's charged to council's budget.
Right. But at that point in time, if council makes it, we could go ahead with the budget, and if at that point in time, council decides to go that route, it could still come out of council's
Community grants.
community grants. Okay. Councillor Tarnowski?
Mr. Leduc, just to confirm, there is a difference between the free ice versus adding a pass to somewhere that has flexible capacity, which is nowhere near that capacity. So there is on paper possibly a cost, but there is enough capacity there in terms of walking passes that we can give out that won't have an impact financially. Whereas if I'm not turning away a walker, for example, because I'm giving out a free pass, versus if I'm giving away a free hour of ice, I may be turning someone away at some times.
Mr. Leduc?
I fully agree, but that member may be right now a current past member, which would now become a free user member. So therefore, it's a lost revenue or potential lost revenue for
Potential
us.
loss of revenue. Okay. Conseiller Brisson?
c'est un peu, vu qu'on parle là, des avantages et du don et tout ça, c'était savoir, est-ce que ça avait été voté officiel que les employés avaient une réduction de 25% pour 20 ou 25% pour
Oui.
le don.
Oui,
Est-ce qu'on fait partie de ça, nous autres aussi?
Monsieur Leduc?
Le règlement de rémunération des membres du conseil, c'est un règlement différent que celui des employés. Donc, si le conseil veut se donner ce privilège-là, c'est à vous de faire l'amendement que ce règlement-là soit amendé.
OK. Parfait.
Sans avoir free, c'est pour ça que je me demandais si on, parce que c'est avant d'aller payer, justement, ma membership, c'est de savoir est-ce qu'on considérait la même chose que vous autres si on avait la réduction de 20 ou 25% sur le
Ouais, on va réouvrir le remuneration bylaw, alors ça va venir à ce moment-là. And last item, other raised by administration for council's consideration, ash tree replacement program, establishment of a special levy for this. So, Monsieur Leduc?
Over the last 3 or 4 years, we have spent a lot of money on ash tree replacement, or cutting down, I should say. Ash tree replacement program elsewhere in some other territories. There's been some funding programs available to residents to cut down their dead tree, or not for the cost of cutting down, but more so for the cost of planting a new tree. So I was just throwing out there, is there any interest in considering this or not? We have not put any numbers here. We do have tree planting for our own parks and areas, but certain funding for the public. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Councillor Associate?
Do we have an estimate of how many ash trees we actually removed?
Lots.
Yeah, I know it's lots, but
Madame Thor?
I could probably go back on the invoices, because the arborist makes sure to always mention the number of trees that were cut. I could go back, but it's over 200, I'm sure.
yeah,
Over.
I would say so,
Yeah.
usually. I mean, I'm in full support of this, maybe again, we can look at partnerships or, approach South Nation again to see if they
Yeah.
would be in.
Because I did approach South Nation for the program they had, but that program they had was
That
only
was
for the
Ottawa.
city of Ottawa.
Yeah.
And it's
And
fully funded by
it
City
was
of
only
Ottawa.
for personal individuals. It was not for anything to do with the
Municipalities.
town. It was for private individuals.
Yeah, the City of Ottawa gave an amount, and SNC was essentially redistributing through a program to the Ottawa residents. So if we wanted to put a similar type of program in place, we'd have to determine what the amount is that we would give South Nation for our residents to apply through the same program. Again, it would be considered a special levy or part of a taxation increase, but does council want to go that route?
I'm in support.
Monsieur Leduc?
Mr. Bourgault was saying to me that he's got to bring back that tree canopy policy that has to be in place before March 1st. And there's an action plan that is in the policy.
Okay.
So part of the action plan, that element could be there,
Okay.
and further discussion as to how much money could be considered.
At that point in time.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Sosi?
Did we already remove the ash trees in Yahoo Park too? No, so they need to be removed yet, and it'd be nice to have something to replace there.
Yes.
So perhaps that's when we could approach, South Nation, see if they might do the tree replacement for there. Yeah, maybe if we sweet talk.
Well, you're in a good position.
Okay, we're finished with this list. Monsieur Leduc, it's getting noon. Do we need some more time? Do we want to have lunch and then come back?
Seulement, ce qui reste, Monsieur le maire, c'est la direction finale. On a résumé, je pense, 5-6 items.
Okay, well, let's take 5 minutes, because I've emptied that bottle.
Okay.
We have some more.
And is lunch here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
Let's
take
that
lunch
up.
then.
Yeah, and then.
No.
tout le monde. Welcome back, everyone. Finish up this budget session. It'll depend how much Monsieur Godin is throwing at us.
You got 15 minutes.
It won't take me more than 15 minutes. Those are anyway. We
Okay.
just have a couple of slides up.
Okay. Slides.
Do we have these ones or no?
Oh, well, it's in the PowerPoint, I guess, the last two slides. It's just basically the summary of the budget and then direction from council as to where we go from there.
Okay.
All right, so, and I think this may have been presented with the first draft, I'm not sure, but basically this is just a recap. The total operational budget is 25.8 million. It's an increase of 6.32% from last year. The total capital budget is 27.6 for a total budget of 53.4 million. So like we see every year, operational budgets go up at a constant pace. Infrastructure is where we see more of a variance depending on the present year's needs. So yeah, it's just to give you an idea of from 2016 to this year what we're looking at.
Councilor Godin?
Can you just remind us what the $20 million increase in infrastructure is? And is it the 13 million for
Well,
the?
yeah, so 13 million for the service.
417. Okay.
For 417, is there, and there was a land purchase there as well, and all the roads and hydration that presented a big amount there. And so finally, I mean, direction from council, I'm gonna mention a few things that we're just gonna, as we went through the presentation, there were mentions of certain slides that we're gonna tweak a bit to add percentages or minor changes like that. Some of the schedules is also to just add some information, so the next version, we're gonna bring those changes, and that's how it's gonna be posted on the website as well. There are a few changes maybe that we'd like to have a clearer direction just to make sure we're all on the same page. So basically, you mentioned the 356,000 coming from the counties. That was not included in the first draft. So we'll be adding that. And so there was talk about adding 4th Road and McDonald Road, the surface treatment. And there was also talk about applying into the bridge if we're not approved for the grant. So I think if I understood correctly, we're going to be adding those 2 roads, and we'll come back to council with a response from the grant application at that time. This is going to be completed.
Right, so if, we'll have that discussion if it comes back that the bridge isn't approved, but we have a time frame before, we're putting in the budget to do the, surface treatment. So we're putting in the budget the surface treatment at 4th Road and McDonald Road. Obviously, that won't be done right away, but it might change at one point when it comes back to council with the response from the OCIF. But, Monsieur Leduc?
Just want to make sure, how you want us to present it to the public though, because if we put it to the budget and we say it's being surface treated on those 2 roads.
And then we don't.
And we don't, so do we put asterisks, we put some notes to say it's conditional to some, or is the bridge conditional?
Okay, so maybe I'll take a step back and ask council the following question, which is, if OCIF doesn't come in, are we willing to put the bridge ahead of the 2 roads? For me, at this point in time, I'll say that I want the 2 roads to get done.
For myself, it's the bridge.
For yourself, it's a bridge. Councilor Lorrain?
Well, that's exactly where I wanted to have the discussion. I think the bridge goes in with the funding request. If it doesn't get the funding, then it remains unfinanced, and we finance it next year. If it gets funded, great. I do not want to take out the surface treatment for those 2 roads. I think if we're saying we're going to do the roads, we do the roads, regardless of whether the funding comes in from OCIF. And if it doesn't come in from OCIF, it goes into unfinanced, and we deal with it next year. And we get both of those, we get all the projects done.
Okay, Councillor Associate?
I think the bridge is a priority for safety reasons, liability, and also, you know, and I would consider McDonald Road first, because that's been on the list the longest.
Okay. Councillor Janoski?
Correct me if I'm wrong, I recall when we talked about the bridge that we had a 2-year window, where it was still good. So I'm gonna go with the logic of Councillor Lorraine, and I would go with the roads and with the bridge as a, hopefully we can do it, hopefully we get the funding, if not, we definitely have to do it next year.
Okay. Councillor Lorraine?
Yeah, sorry. If it goes unfinanced this year, the job can still get done and we pay it off when the job is done, right? Yes.
It would be a loan?
Yeah.
Well, basically, if we go through the project and it's left unfinanced, it's basically absorbed by, it's supported by our reserves, essentially. We have done that in the past, but if we're to do that, I would probably just propose that we use the reserve, like the asset management reserve directly, instead of leaving it unfinanced, just so we can show that we really are funding that project, and we do have the funds in the reserve.
Because ultimately, I want all three done this year. Regardless of whether we get the OCIF grant or not, I want all 3 projects done. I think there's a priority on all of them, maybe Forest Road is the bottom priority, but I think all 3 of them are priorities, and I want them all done regardless of OCIF.
Okay.
That's good.
Clear? Okay. Next.
Next, Betty will slide 83. So when we presented the user fees for waste and recycling, there was talk of potentially an increase of $2 but there was no official direction or anything given at that time. In the present budget, we were not proposing any increases. So maybe just to clarify, I think it was at $2 for an extra pickup or an extra bag or.
Oh, for Councillor Lorraine suggesting that there be, we increase for an extra bag at Christmas time. Essentially,
It's $1, basically $1,
It would be
$1.
so it would be $1. The difference is that $1 is being paid by everybody, whereas the people who need a second bag just have to pay $2 to get a tag.
Correct.
Correct. So,
But everyone has the opportunity to put 2 bags out at that point, for that week.
if they so choose to do so. So is that, you must have had requests, I haven't heard anything about it. I don't know do we want to increase the rate, or we just let it status quo, and if somebody has a second bag, they can pay the $2? Councillor Tarnowski?
I'd like to keep it at the same rate, please.
Okay. Councillor Associate?
Well, I actually thought Councillor Moran's idea was a good idea, but I don't want to really increase the rates. Yeah, if they need to purchase a bag, they must still purchase a bag.
Okay. Conseiller Brisson?
Moi, c'est surtout la logique de faire partager ces choses-là au monde, tout ça, la logistique. Fait que j'aurais pas de problème de le rester à Aziz, que le monde le sache. Puis s'ils veulent prendre une chance d'en mettre 2, ça,
Jette un tag.
faut bien donc qu'ils mettent, que après ça, s'ils ramassent tant mieux pour eux autres, sinon.
I think that golden goose is gone when Monsieur Bourgon leaves the table. So
Yes, and we're on camera. OK, on a direction là-dessus, Monsieur Godin? Status quo?
Address it. No.
Alright, so the next topic is user fees for the arena. You had mentioned that we would come back to it after we had spoken about the rec complex and some of that. So right now we're proposing, I think it's a 5% increase for ice rental rates. Just want to confirm if that's the direction we're getting.
I'm the one who suggested that we increase higher than that we start creating a reserve from the user fees. I think realistically, we saw some numbers yesterday that showed how much of a cost we're looking at. So I think the user should be paying part of that, pay a higher fee to help put that in place. That was my suggestion. Conseiller Bisson?
Puis moi, je supporte 100% ça. Même, je serais pareil à ajouter 20% même qu'il y a dedans, que s'ils sont pas parés à payer ça pour avoir une nouvelle installation, why do we go with it? Ça fait que moi, j'aurais pas de problème de commencer à faire un fonds avec, de charger même à 20% d'augmentation,
So-
que ça s'en aille dans la réserve.
OK, so tu proposes 20% plus le 5% pour l'opérationnel, ou tu 5% pour l'opérationnel puis 15% pour une réserve?
Est-ce qu'il y a besoin de 5% ou ça?
Pour les opérations, oui.
Ça pourrait être. Ça, c'est décidé autre chose. Je serais pareil à comme 15 puis 5 que en avoir un montant à dire OK, c'est pas pire que quelqu'un qui fait une contribution.
So, puis ça, ça serait across the board, so youth, you're looking at about $24, $25 in that range, probably a little bit more for
Ouais.
26, 27 for youth, you're looking at about 32 for the junior team, and you're looking at about 36 for the adults. And the non-resident, well, they can pay a higher fee
Moi,
as
je,
well.
moi, je proposerais
Okay,
ça.
so 20%. Other members of council, are we okay with that? Councilor Alain?
Not necessarily okay with, I'll be more at ease with it if you tell me that you're not coming with any changes to the allocation bylaw. Because if we start making changes to the allocation bylaw and forcing associations to take ice that they're never gonna use, then I have a problem with it. It's $25 more an hour that we're gonna implement on minor hockey based on this number. If you're talking $6 is 5%. If we're talking 20%, you're talking $25 an hour difference. And then
So-
forcing them to take hours that they're not getting, I'd have a serious problem with that.
So the 5% operational increase is to help offset what we put in place previously. Is that correct, Madame Tal?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, that's right. So I had no intention of going back in the policy. Instead, I was increasing the user fee to try to catch up what we've lost last year.
Okay. So are members of council okay with that? Councilor Tanoski?
My only caveat would be that we very clearly make sure that users understand that this is a reserve for replacements for new ice rinks. And as such, a user fee makes sense to increase, to have a reserve, and to put that money aside. 15%, I think is reasonable.
Monsieur Leduc?
I think we could look into how the invoicing will be produced, so that they can see regular rate plus special levy or whatever it is, special contribution, so that they can understand on their bill that that's what's happening. If we can do that, we'll do that.
Conseiller Lorrain?
Can I ask that for the February 19th meeting, when we're looking to pass the budget, specifically for the ice, knowing how many rentals that we've had in calendar 2018, not just the season, but calendar 2018, had we imposed a 15% surcharge, if you will, on those rentals, what would we have put in reserve in 2018? Just so it gives me an idea of going forward of the annual amount that we're going to put away.
Madame Guitard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So basically, 5% right now, both sides represent about $16,000 for the whole year, like January to April,
About
and
48,000
so you'd be
for the
close to
reserve.
50,000
for the reserve.
for the reserve.
3 times 16, is that what we're talking about?
That's on each side, so you'd have more than 50. You have 50 on the member.
Oh, that's each side? So we
Very
have,
close, very
So,
close.
so we're talking putting away $100,000 a year.
Could very well be. I can look at it again.
So, juste pour confirmer, 5% d'augmentation,
It represent about $16,000.
each arena.
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
32 total. So we're looking at about $92,000.
The only thing is, with the numbers of 2018, since we've lost those hours, it might decrease a little bit, because obviously those are rentals that we lost. So if you're counting percentage on that, well, we're not getting it. So I could
What
definitely
was-
look into that.
For what was paid for. But no, you don't have to do it now, we just did the math, I'm not,
So,
Okay.
On l'a fait.
say $80,000 in that range,
Yeah.
to be safe, for reserve, per year. Okay? Everybody okay, or?
are we setting that for a specific time period? Or are we saying it's, like, are we saying that's for a 5-year period, a 4-year period, a 10-year period? Like, how long are we reserving for the new complex?
Well, I think.
Or until it's built, until it's
I would
paid
say,
off?
I would say until it's built, and then at that point in time, obviously with the new construction.
The rates are gonna go up no matter what.
The rates will change, and that'll be a discussion at that point in
I
time
think,
as to how.
I think that's important from a reserve perspective, is to give it a time frame that we're gonna collect those rates from 2019 through, right now, projected at 2023, we'll say. And we're adding $100,000. So in that chart that you did with those numbers, you'd have your 750, your 1.5, well, that 1.5 is now gonna be 200 or whatever, right? So that's something, or 2 million, I mean, so.
Okay. Monsieur Leduc?
I would have wanted to instill hope for the users. I would have said max 10 or earlier when built. So gives them an idea as to,
The 15%.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
so it gives them hope that, this might be a 3-year thing, it might be a 7-year thing, who knows, but I think then they can see the hope or the light at the end of the tunnel saying it's coming. They're starting to charge us for it, so therefore it must be coming
Right. So yeah, stating that 10-year period, or
earlier.
when
When
earlier
built.
if the complex is built.
Yeah.
Fine. Madame Guiton?
I have a question, and I don't wanna be the devil's advocate here, but let's say we decide not to put any ice rink in the complex. What do I do with this?
We gotta replace those arenas at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
It's
I
gotta be-
just
Like,
in case.
Yeah, there or anywhere else, we'll have to replace it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
it's for basically it's for asset replacement.
So
Right.
should we say that it's for asset replacement or arenas?
I would say right now it's rec complex / arenas.
I guess Madame Guiton, what is asking is that if council decided to not build 2 new arenas, but just revamp the 2 existing ones, can that be used for that purpose? Right, so
I think they're more arena specific because they're the arena users and they should be arena specific.
yeah. But then we wanna be careful how we word it, right? We don't wanna say new arenas, because they're telling them you're building 2 new arenas, but if Madame Guiton's question is in regards to what happens if the arenas aren't built and we're just revamping, so it just have to be clear exactly how it's worded.
We'll find a word.
Conseiller Laurent?
My opinion is we need to say rec complex. If we don't say rec complex, they're gonna say, well, this is just another tax and they just wanna take it out of the users. I think the objective is we're gonna try and get them to the point where when we get a new complex, the rates are gonna go up significantly from an operational perspective. If we revamp the arenas, the rate structure shouldn't be much different than what it is today. So, to me, we have to say rec complex to provide that hope that we are going towards that rec complex. If we just say arenas, to me, that's operational and it shouldn't fall under those specific users. So, that's my opinion.
Ok, surtout. Conseiller Buisson?
Juste une question que justement, quand tu avais le schéma du financement, juste à tout vérifier, si on va juste avec 2 arénas, c'est juste un remplacement, si on pouvait utiliser les DC ou pas.
Non, tu peux pas utiliser.
Parce que d'abord, c'est ça, dans les charges, ça va changer le chose de financement.
Oui, oui, définitivement. Councilor Alain?
Well, just on that point, even if you put two new ones in, it doesn't mean that one of them cannot be charged under the DCs, because it all depends on what you do with the other two. If you decommission one, as an example, you've still got that one, you've increased by one of them is is DC eligible. You can't just, we can't just make the assumption that if we put two new ones in, that we're not getting any DCs for it. You absolutely can, it depends on what you do with your other two, right?
Yeah, it's all part of the discussion of future rec complex. Okay,
So, I just wanted to make that clear, we can't just say that we're not getting any DCs if we put two new rinks in.
But the plan is more to do,
a central location and not have,
because the other one, they're getting old, both of them. Even Russell is even older than Ambrim.
okay? On est correct cette direction-là? Prochain?
So, my next note was regarding the museum, plating.
The cladding?
I think, so we had 70,000, and the potential was to agree to 140
If there was
if there
private,
was a partnership with, or if there was some contribution from the community, so I'm not sure. I just want to clarify that direction.
so can we put it in the budget at 140 with a $70,000 other? And if that doesn't go ahead, then we still have it in the budget at the $70,000 cost. Does that work, Mr. Godet?
Yep, that works.
And all members of council? Yeah, we're good? Okay. The next,
Okay, so just to confirm, so the next one, the last one was regarding the mayor's, or the mayor's salary, we were gonna add, I think, 15,000, and if it goes forward, we have the funds, if it doesn't go forward, well, they can go into reserve or be used for us.
we're okay with that? Okay. And administration will bring a report with information, not a recommendation, because it shouldn't be up to the administration to make a recommendation, but we'll bring back information for members of council. Okay, anything else? One item I wanna mention that we didn't have the discussion on was we talked about increasing the ice rental rates. We haven't talked about the transit rates. Do we wanna look at increasing those at all?
Bon, moi, je dirais qu'on reste là pour voir combien que ça marche,
Okay.
pour donner une chance de voir. Comme c'est là.
I think that's a discussion to have when the new with the new contract comes in July.
Non.
Perfect. Okay.
Juste-
Monsieur Leduc?
So with that, my understanding is that we will go ahead with the RFP, Mrs. Tremblay.
Yep.
As soon as we can go with the specific criteria that council has raised about the concerns of the municipal contributions to a lower amount, like $25,000 or $30,000.
Well,
Just stay with
I
it.
like the idea, but
Yeah.
like we said yesterday, is that if we say that we wanna limit it to 25, then we know every proposal is gonna come in at 25. What I would suggest is, having a wording in there that council is looking to limit the municipal contribution as much as possible. That way, businesses will try and figure out how much they are willing, based on their operational cost profit margin, and then we might have some variation with the bids. Councilor Lara?
I don't know if there's an also way to have the bids be a singular number bid versus having this, somebody pays for the difference in the gas. Yeah, like that, to me, makes no sense. Like that's part of your operational costs, and it should be absorbed through the number in the contract. So right now, when we talk about what we're paying in transit, we've got the contract price, but we've also got the additional gas charges that we pay incrementally. I know they're gonna go down because now we're using the different numbers, but I wanna make sure that, to me, it should be, your contract price is your contract price. If it's $650,000 that the township pays you, the township pays you $650,000 a year. And that's it, that's what you get. right?
And then, I mean, we can have, if they, depending how the, if somebody wants, like, I'll give you an example. I take a taxi, I know it's $20 from here to here, that's what I wanna know. I'm paying for a service, I don't need any ifs, possibilities, or whatever. If somebody wants to say, okay, they're willing to give us a 5-year price at this fixed rate over the 5 years, regardless of what the gas is, then that's their price. If we have to go back year after year to RFP and have a sense where, you know what, we can justify to the users, you know, the contract next year is this much, so these are the fees you're gonna be paying. But as simple as possible, so that we can explain to users and non-users why these municipal funds are, and why these rates are being applied. Conseiller Buisson?
Ben, moi, je suis pas vraiment d'accord avec cette chose-là, parce que logiquement, si on veut un contrat à long terme, le gaz varie beaucoup, puis que tu arrives dans toute compagnie de transport, ils ont toutes un frais pour se protéger, parce que ça peut passer de 90 cents à, on ne sait pas, dans 4 ans, ça va monter à 2 piastres. Ça fait que dans leur contrat, moi, je pense que c'est rien qu'une protection pour eux autres, puis normal, parce qu'il y a la même chose pour les avions, il y a la même chose pour toute compagnie de transport, que tu te fies à un montant, puis que si ça vient à 2 piastres le litre, le gaz, ben c'est là on transférera le coût au user fee, oui. Mais pour le chose, je pense qu'ils ne peuvent pas. Autrement, il va falloir qu'ils demandent bien cher pour faire sûr de se couvrir si ça remonte. Ça, c'est mon point de vue.
Madame Tremblay?
So when we looked at the contract initially, I remember that comments, and this is something that will be addressed. And I understand your point, Mr. Buxton, that the way that it works, like let's say in Rockland, it's a monthly fee, and at the end of the year, the amount get adjusted based on the extra money that they paid. So it's easier for them to budget the same amount every time because they know exactly what the monthly fee is. So there's other way considering the changes of the gas price to look at it compared to what we're doing it. And I think what I gathered from the comments and the concerns that you expressed is that you never know how much they are paying compared to what we're paying. So I think there's a different formula of what we're doing now that could be beneficial for them and for us as well. So that's something that we'll consider in the RFP for sure.
Conseiller?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear too, I wasn't suggesting that there be no cost of living adjustment if it's a 3-year or 5-year contract. If it's 600 one year and it's 610 the next and it's 620 the next, that's fine. It's the in-year fluctuations and additional amounts that we pay that I have no time for anymore. I mean, look at the amounts. I mean, let's be honest, this contract was horrific. When we look at the overpayment of gas that we were giving on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, whatever that number was, where they might have been paying $1.20 a liter, but we were giving them $1.30 a liter because of the calculation of the province. That can't happen anymore. These are tax dollars, right? I understand that they have a business to run and the province fluctuates that number, but they need to build that into their price to say for that 1 year, it's this much money regardless of what the number is. It's just the way it is.
Okay.
Ça serait de regarder, mais c'est, moi, je me dis que si on veut un contrat de 3 ou 5 ans, ils ne peuvent pas savoir, on le voit comment que le gaz varie.
But you got the
À
cost
moins
of
que
living.
si tu mets à l'année, que tu fais un rajustement à la fin de l'année.
Ils peuvent mettre le coût de vie dans leur prix.
And each year
Oui,
they go
mais ça
up, that's
dépend.
fine.
Le coût de vie, oui, ça couvre les coûts de réparation, les coûts du driver, tout ça. Mais on voit le gaz qui passe de 90 cents à 1,50 $. Quand il monte à 1,50 $, si tu veux que lui ne prenne pas trop de chance, il va falloir qu'il te charge comme si le gaz était à 1,20 $, même quand il est à 90 cents.
Sauf qu'il ne faut pas oublier que ça se balance aussi parce que ça rebaisse souvent plus bas que qu'est-ce qu'on paye pas. C'est pour ça
Je suis
qu'il faut juste
ouvert
trouver
aux
une
choses, mais
formule.
Mais ça
Ouais,
va,
c'est
ça
pas
va
fait.
partie de l'RFP.
Yeah.
L'administration sait comment mettre l'RFP en place. Ça, une fois qu'on a les résultats, ça va revenir au conseil. Councilor Lorraine,
I'm sure that whatever company bids on this
contract.
contract, are going to be able to find the best deals on their diesel gas and ensure that they get the proper rack rates and not just buying retail. So they know their business, they should be able to do it and do it at a reasonable cost to our taxpayers. That's the key point. They are a private business and they are getting funded through the taxpayers for a program that they've done privately before. So let's make sure, I mean, I have no problem with the transit service if it's reasonable to our taxpayers. And, you know, say that the gas fluctuates up and down, get a good deal in place where you're paying the proper rates and you're not gonna have those fluctuations. So,
Okay. Mr. Godin, that's it, that's all?
Oui, merci, Mr. Miles. So, yeah, that was all the clarifications required. On our end, we're gonna make the necessary adjustments as discussed. And in the next version, which is gonna be on February 19th, we're gonna have a list of all the changes that were done, so you're.
And looking for approval that night.
Exactly, yeah.
Conseiller Buisson?
Ma question que je voulais amener au conseil, là, comme c'est là, on parlait d'une hausse de taxes de 2%. Est-ce que, parce que c'est venu quand on a parlé du financement pour le REC, est-ce qu'il y en a qui seraient intéressés qu'on mette une deuxième surcharge de taxes pour pouvoir mettre dans une réserve, commencer comme c'est là, dire au lieu de 2%, que ça serait 3% ou 4%, mais disant qu'il y a 2% qui s'en va dans la réserve pour le REC. Je sais que c'était venu dans un des schémas, savoir si on le commence comme c'est là, parce que vu qu'on le met aux frais d'utilisation, que si on voulait ramasser
Monsieur Leduc?
Je vais m'avancer, M. Buisson. Hier, on nous a présenté 150 000 et 200 000. Pour nous, dans notre tête, le 150 000 va commencer cette année. Donc, le programme de 150, 300, 450, 700 est commencé avec la direction qu'on a eue hier. Donc, dans notre tête, nous, les formules qu'on a présentées, on va dorénavant se baser sur ça pour les prochains budgets.
Et 150.
Qui est environ 1,3%. Donc, on s'en va
Oui.
dans les directions où vous voulez aller.
Oui, mais là, il y avait figuré, mais ça, c'était-tu déjà figuré dans le 2%?
Oui.
OK.
Ça, c'est inclus. Plus, on regarde
OK.
un autre 80 000 $. On est vraiment plus à 230 000 qu'on commence cette année. Évidemment, le 80, c'est pas cumulative. It's not going 160 and,
OK.
you know, that.
C'est pour ça que dans le 2%,
Ça, c'est inclus.
je pensais que c'était juste un exemple que vous nous aviez donné, que si on faisait
C'est à
de cette
cause
manière-là.
le 150, ça va pour le paiement du don
pour les 3 premières années.
pour les 3 premières années, puis après ça, on est rendu à ce point. Ensuite, Finansky?
Juste, alors, là, le budget va nous revenir le 19, pour le vote final. On va avoir une chance de le revoir par électroniquement avant.
Normalement, on vous envoie dans votre package régulier la version finale du budget, puis la recommandation.
Everything good? Conseiller Larry?
So I just assume that during this whole discussion that we've had, and I'll tackle the elephant in the room as well with are we staying at 2% salary increases for staff? Because we talked about it yesterday, and I know there was some discussion.
I'm comfortable with the 2%, based on the information, as you mentioned yesterday. It's like the county's going 0, 0, 0, all of a sudden, we're gonna have a Hague group study if we haven't increased, then it's gonna catch up to us at one point. But I'm fine with the 2%. Councillor Associate?
I just had a question about, like, is that pay equity? Like, are the staff, paid equally? Or
Monsieur
job?
Leduc?
Yeah, since 1990, as per the obligation, since these are now gender neutral scales, so therefore anybody who's female versus male in the same category is paid the same thing. So there's no, it beats the pay equity issue.
Are people in this, like, similar position, and it's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why we've got points on the left-hand side of your, of the scales here, you see ranges of points.
okay.
So every positions have been resubmitted to Hague Group last time for review. And now in our annual review process, anybody who feels that their job description is worth more, then we resubmit to Hay Group for a reevaluation, and so therefore it's kept now on a yearly basis. So anybody who feels that is not properly assessed, resubmits a request and we reassess it. So it meets that obligation.
Conseiller Brisson?
Moi, comme j'avais mentionné, j'ai pas de problème si vous voulez le rester à 2. J'ai pas de problème de le mettre à 1,5 non plus, parce que c'est le coût de la vie que ça avait été montré pour l'Ontario, que si on fait plus que pour le mettre pour le Rec Center, la différence, puis que ça, si les citoyens nous approchent, disent, ben regarde, les employés, parce que nous autres aussi, on a notre 2%, mais ça fait pas un gros montant, qu'on fait toute notre part pour être dedans. Fait que, mais ça, c'est à majorité, je vais aller avec. Mais moi, j'aurais pas de problème non plus. J'aurais la conscience tranquille aussi si on va à 1,5.
Councillor Chernowski, are you okay with the 2%?
I just wish I had the forecasted inflation rate for next year. I'm trying to look for it, the Conference Board of Canada, and I can't find it. So typically it'll be around between 1.5 and 2%. So it's not unreasonable, 2%, but we could probably tighten that a little bit. But on the same token, it's my first budget, and I'm not going to be too assertive yet.
So 2% is okay? 2%? Councillor Saucier?
Well, I just had a question, is that on par with like other municipalities as well? Or-
Yeah. In the slideshow, I think it was a few of the municipalities were at the same range. Counties, anyways, for sure. But
The counters for sure, but the other ones, I'm not too sure what they're doing this year. But we still had some catching up towards others the last 5 years. So
okay, so we're good
For this year.
for this year. Yeah, we're fine with the 2%. Okay, in that case, thank you very much, everyone. Councillor Chernowski?
Sorry, I gotta get one last comment. This is my first kick at the cat on this, so just wanna thank everyone for your patience and understanding, and I gotta say, I'm really impressed. I thought I did a really good job getting ready for the elections and understanding this, but now I really know this stuff. Thank you.
I'm glad you do.
Perfect. So I need a confirming bylaw, that bylaw 2019-017 being a bylaw confirm the proceedings of council of the corporation of Township of Russell at special council meeting held on January 25th, 2019. Be read a first, second, and third time and pass. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Conseiller Bisson, seconded Councillor Chernowski. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Next meeting, next regular public meeting of council will be held on Monday, February 4th, 2019, and we are adjourned at 1:08 p.m.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Glad we had lunch. That was more than 15 minutes.
Were you all done?
Ooh, that was fun.
That was fun.
Do it again in 6 months.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, it'll be fresh. Ça prend des,
Ben, on va en préparer des finales
C'est
avec
ça.
les budgets finales. Fait que tu peux me donner une suite ou tu peux me donner une passe comme ça.
Ça, ça.
When you got the